Well, hello, and welcome on in to another episode of DCU Daily on Oh So Curious. As always, we're going to start off today with a bunch of news from CinemaCon.
You okay?
Okay, I'm okay. Whew. Whoa. And Warner Brothers almost already got to me, and we haven't even talked about Superman yet. Don't worry, we will not actually play the trailer. We'll just look at most of the photos. But we will talk about and break down all the Easter eggs and everything to do with the Superman sneak peek that was officially released online. So yes, you do not have to buy a ticket to go to Minecraft anymore. Unless the one behind Minecraft is even longer, which I can't imagine how much longer than the one that they dropped online will be. And then, of course, we had to talk about the Thunderbolts clip. There was a Lilo and Stitch clip. Disney did their presentation today. We had to talk about Amazon MGM's presentation from yesterday. Tom Cruise and Glenn Powell both showed up, as well as Mark Hamill. And Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, for the Paramount presentation. We'll get into that as well. And then, of course, we do have to discuss the Naked Gun trailer, which John and I both love the heck out of. Give me my Liam Neeson's. Give me more. Please give it to me now. The Accountant 2 trailer as well. We have to talk about the first reactions from the screening on Wednesday for the How to Train Your Dragon movie. And of course, then we have to talk about the second trailer for Superman. James Gunn has given us an idea of when we might be getting it. And what is he doing about it? Because he did say that that sneak peek is not technically a second trailer. So we'll talk about that and so much more. To do that, let's hit that news intro and then we'll get things started.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always the number two.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
Robert
You're
Downey.
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chorus.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the needs now.
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Don't worry, guys. I am not dying and I'm not becoming a zombie. But yeah, just something got stuck in my throat at the absolute worst possible time. But yes, we do have to get into all the news today. To do that with me, as always, I've got John. How are you? How are you doing today?
Sit down, Robert Downey Jr., you fat motherfucker. It's time to fucking talk about fucking Superman. Get out of here with your shitty ass Dr. Doom. Fuck you, motherfucker. Anyway, let's get the show on the road.
Cool. We will talk about Thunderbolts. We will talk about the Marvel presentation. James Gunn's timing. There's something wrong today. James Gunn's timing with the whole Superman sneak peek being released was kind of dubious in terms of like Marvel presenting at CinemaCon right around the time when that came out. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into it. Was that something that James Gunn meant to do? Maybe that friendly rivalry between Marvel and DC. But okay, let's get things going with the first thing that I wanted to start with. In the news section is essentially
Hey, look, Jared Leto. Your buddy.
He was there, and he was presenting the Tron Ares first look, and of course you got why am I forgetting his name again? I'm looking him in the face. Jeffrey Bridges, the dude. All right,
Watch
cool.
the old man. Like,
I know, I did. I always want to say something else because I can keep in my mind. It's like I keep confusing the name of like Jeff Bridges with Jeffrey Wright, and I'm like, that's not Jeffrey Wright. That's not Jeffrey Wright. Okay, I'll get it eventually.
Caleb's very excited. Honka, my God. And we're glad you're happy, Caleb.
We're glad that you are here, and we're glad that we are here too. So the first thing I wanted to do was just look through some of the pictures of the day, guys. So Avatar Fire and Ash, it's red this time. They talked about that. They presented a little bit of footage, so we'll dive into that a little bit later. They did bring out Zoe Saldana to talk about that, who had just finished watching in that show on Paramount Plus. What's it called? Whatever. She's got a show on Paramount Plus that Taylor Sheridan makes and actually stars in himself.
1883,
The Lioness.
1920.
The Lioness. There we go. Anyway, the Thunderbolts were on the stage. I think Hannah John Kamen on the left, probably the best dressed of the bunch. And then you got Shaggy in the middle. But then
yeah, Wyatt Russell, he's looking like he must have like just lost all of his muscle mass, which is fine. Like, good for him.
It's totally cool.
Fuck that. I'm not gonna fucking do roids all my life. I'm gonna eat some ice cream.
Or you know what? You can just eat some Thunderbolts. Which the cereal box is real, guys. David Harbour did bring out the cereal box, and
thank God Liz isn't
I
here.
can't wait for this.
Might have had an orgasm on stream because goddamn her obsession with that goddamn cereal box.
Yep. So there was some of that. Jeremy Allen White, our resident Ratman. Is that Ratman? What was the thing that we did early last year?
Say that. Like, okay,
what was the thing? There was a New York Times article about it.
It was
was it?
Ratman
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway.
okay, he's not my type, but like if people like him, but don't call him a fucking rat man. That's just terrible. I don't think he's.
It was the article. I didn't invent the term.
I'm just saying in general. I didn't like that.
More Katniss in the chat too. Hello, more Katniss. Just some geeky guy. We will bring your super chat in. Thank you so much for that, as always. And then all right, we're gonna skip past some of the photos. Of course, Jeremy Strong looking as serious as ever. Disney not disappointing with their parade of logos. This is basically the list of all the movies that they talked about. So we will dive into pretty much all of them. Freakier Friday, especially Tron, Ares, Thunderbolts, Predator, Badlands. Ella McKay, I don't know if you're going to talk about that much, or The Roses either. Deliver Me From Nowhere, I'm not too familiar with that movie as either, but Zootopia 2 looked interesting. Fantastic Four. There wasn't a ton with Fantastic Four. We didn't get like a new clip that we can show you or talk about here, but they did give some new footage to the people who were in attendance at the event. And then, Disney also boasted, Lindsay Lohan looks great, by the way. And okay, there's Jared Leto again. But Disney did boast about, their slate of movies from last year, which included a bunch of award winners and Oscar nominees, as well as some of the biggest, highest grossing movies of the year as well.
I love how like all the really good movies on the top, ignoring Alien Romulus, were all like nominated for Oscars and Inside Out 2. And then you have all the shit on the bottom that's like Deadpool 3, Moana 2, and then fucking Mufasa.
Technically,
really interesting, like a biopic, and then like a real game.
Yes.
And then you have like fucking Disney schlock on the bottom.
What I will say though, technically, the 4 movies at the bottom were also all Oscar nominated, just in more of the technical and the animation categories. So, and I don't think any of them won. But yeah, Disney obviously had a pretty good year last year.
The top ones are like.
I know what you mean. Yes, like they're better movies in general. Yes, objectively speaking, the top 4. Well, I think maybe you could swap out Inside Out 2 with Alien Romulus, and then you have like the proper 4 and 4 in terms of quality. Of course, Glenn Powell and Tom Cruise. There's a fun story in Quickets we'll get into. Glenn Powell got some really fun advice from Tom Cruise, which I'm like, I need to take some of that advice myself. I'll set up a camera on a stick and then do something that Tom Cruise says you should always do, because, anyway, we'll talk about that later. That sounded very inappropriate. I trust me, it wasn't. But yeah, Mark Hamill, man. I just, you know what? The next thing I want is Tom Cruise. I want that photo with Tom Cruise. I want him to Photoshop like him pointing at me. Just
Mark Hamill looks like he's like 3 doobies in, because he just doesn't look like he's all there. Like Mark is just like sees like past like all the cameras, just like
yeah.
Just like totally like, I mean, he's old, so it's fine, but like,
it's fine. What I will say though, Tom Cruise definitely in his long hair era, his second long hair era, wasn't he doing sporting this hairstyle back in the late 2000s when the Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol came out? Then he went short hair for a while. Now he's back to the long.
It was Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol was long hair, and then he went short hair for Rogue Nation and Fallout, and now he's
he cycles through that like every 5 years. He goes with the long hair.
Yeah, because he had long hair during Mission Impossible 2.
Yes, he did. Exactly. It's like every 5 or 6 years, Tom Cruise like cycles through the long hair phase of his life. But anyway, yeah, he was on stage, so we'll talk about that as well. He was not only talking about the movie, well, not Top Gun, but talking about Mission Impossible, but also he was talking about Top Gun in the sense that he asked everybody to give them a moment of silence in honor of Val Kilmer. So we'll get into that and so much more. So let's start off with stepping back a little bit and discussing the Amazon MGM presentation from yesterday, John. So that was the last presentation of the day, and it took place pretty late. Like, I know we were still live while they were presenting yesterday, but I didn't want to go through and look at everything as it was coming out because we had already done a 3-hour show. So today I wanted to kind of go through what they all talked about. And Amazon MGM, for the first time being at CinemaCon, they brought the stars. Like, they brought all the big names that they possibly could, including Ryan Gosling right off the top. So Mike Hopkins, who's the head of Amazon MGM now, he said, look, we're committing to bringing up to 15 movies a year theatrically by 2027. And even next year, 2026, they'll already have 14 theatrical releases. And then starting in 2027 onwards, they'll be committing to 15 theatrical releases a year, which I believe is very similar to the number that Apple has committed to.
And I mean, when you have fucking disposable income by making all your money from somewhere else, you can afford to fucking do that.
Of course you can. Of course you can. Caleb is going wild in the chat. Hello, Enterprising.
Yeah, goddamn. Caleb, calm down.
Enterprising is really giddy. He's late because he was watching that Superman sneak peek for the 1,000th time. You and me both, Enterprising, and John. John has already seen that like 100 times himself. But yeah, as far as Amazon goes, I was a little surprised that they made such a big commitment right out the gates. I mean, obviously, it speaks to their intentions. They're starting with 12 to 14 theatrical movies next year, and then they're going to go up to 15 as early as 2027. The Mike Hopkins said, as it shows in the headline, that when Amazon commits to something, we tend to do it big. And like you said, John, they have the money to do it. What are your thoughts on, again, not just Amazon, because obviously whenever we talk about Amazon MGM, people talk about Amazon. But for a second, just think about this. MGM is one of the oldest studios in the history of Hollywood. And it went through, like, over the course of the last 100 years, like 4 different big rounds of bankruptcy, right? Including when the MGM casinos, at one point the owner of MGM casinos bought MGM, the studio, and then when he sold off MGM, he said, I will still reserve the right to like name all of my casinos MGM, hence why there's MGM Casino Resorts, which have nothing to do with MGM the movie studio, but the whole reason why that name exists is because the owner of those casinos at one point used to own the studio. And then MGM at one point had to sell a lot of their library to to Turner. That's how like Tom and Jerry and all those other classic cartoons and many other properties ended up in the what used to be the Turner Classic Movies library, and now it's kind of like divided up, but it's still Warner Brothers owns a lot of that Ted Turner bought when the Ted Turner's company merged with Warner Brothers back in I think the 80s or 90s. So MGM has been pillaged and plundered for decades, and I think the point I'm trying to make here is with the might, the power, the money of an Amazon, I'm at least glad that MGM, the studio, I mean, I love the Stargate franchise. They own it. I mean, now they also own the James Bond franchise.
Unfortunately,
I'm glad that the MGM studio brand and the heritage, the legacy is gonna get back to a level where it's now standing head and shoulders, toe to toe with the Walt Disneys of the world. Where, if you guys remember, I don't know, many of you guys probably are not old enough to remember this, but when the first Disney World opened in Florida, it was actually called MGM Disney World because Disney felt like they needed the MGM name to give them the prestige and like the drawing power. And then after a while,
I remember when I went to, like, the MGM Studios, like, part of Disney.
Yeah, and then exactly, it was great. And then eventually they took it. They took it out of the name because they were like, the Disney name they don't need the MGM brand value anymore, and the MGM value, the name of the value of the name was in the dumps by that time because it's gone through like I said 4 different rounds of bankruptcy at least. So yeah, I mean, for a studio, the historical studio like MGM, to now be in the spotlight again, obviously it's Amazon MGM, so yes, it's not just a singular entity. But John, what are your thoughts on what Amazon MGM has in store in general, just a commitment of 15 movies a year, and the fact that the MGM brand is now kind of rising up from the ashes in a way, I suppose?
you know, I assume we're probably gonna get like 3 really, really good movies out of those, maybe. And then and then like 6 will be like hot garbage, and then another 6 will be like mid-range. So we'll get a couple good movies out of it, but I don't think we're gonna get like 15 great movies out of that. But it's like they're kind of shoving everything at the door, so it's like we're warranted at least like 3 like damn good movies, and then outside of that, nah. We're gonna get shit like fucking The Lottery and Ricky Stenicki and the Roadhouse remake and all that shit.
By the way, Caleb, and I think Caleb is being a bit facetious, but Five Ash isn't the biggest fan of the Superman sneak peek in the chat. We'll talk about that later.
Five Ash can suck his dick.
Okay. But yeah, I for one like the idea that MGM, like you're gonna see the line roar on 15 movies a year theatrically. And by the way, they're not just saying they're gonna do limited theatrical releases. These movies will get like international full theatrical releases with Amazon MGM. So I'm excited for that. Now let's get into some of the movies that are actually part of this deal. So, or part of their slate. Now they didn't really announce much for James Bond itself, but they did talk about
that. Why the fuck are you here then, Five Ash? Why, if you're just gonna shit on things, why are you at a fucking place called DCU Daily? If you don't like DC shit, get the fuck out of here. Like the whole point is like to celebrate shit, and you're being an asshole. Yeah, I might be fat, but at least I'm not a sexist pig like you are. We see your comments, and we fucking ban you all the time because you say disgusting shit in our fucking comments. So how about, like, get the fuck out of here and leave us all alone? How about that? So, whatever. Anyway, continue, please.
Sorry, hold on one second, John. I'm trying to figure something out here. Got a tech issue here. Okay. All right, I'm back. All right. So, as I was saying earlier, the Amazon MGM presentation did mention James Bond, but not a whole hell of a lot because obviously they've just started kind of working on their iteration, whatever the franchise will become moving forward. And what they said is that they're planning a fresh, exhilarating new version of a James Bond movie, and they are getting started on the planning now in London. So, you know, the new producers of the franchise, Amy Pascal, David Heyman, and all the other creatives around it, they're working on what will become the next version of James Bond. And the studio executive, Courtney Valenti and Sue Kroll, said at the Wednesday night presentation, which was yesterday, that we are committed to honoring the legacy of this iconic character while bringing a fresh, exhilarating new chapter to audiences around the world alongside Amy Pascal and David Heyman. They're both in London getting started and couldn't be here tonight, but we wanted to thank them for what we know to make an incredible partnership. So John, I think I already know the answer to this.
I'm sorry, like maybe it's possible that they can make some good stuff. I just like every single decision that has been made about the James Bond franchise has just left me kind of scorned with it. And yeah, we might get like a couple of good movies, but like the rumor, like I understand it's rumor mill, but like the way that they're talking about it is just, I don't have hope in this. However, since I'm wearing an insignia that means hope, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they can produce something good. Here's the thing: when it comes to stuff like this, like when I'm talking about Supergirl, when I'm talking about Lanterns, or even this, I want to be proven wrong. Like that's what I want. Like I expect to be disappointed, but like I want to be proven wrong because then I'm like, oh, awesome. That means I get to like something and I get to enjoy it and I get to appreciate it. Now, with James Bond kind of being like having so much controversy and having all these weird opinions from people that keep getting like news headlines for some reason, it's a little like he's been kind of dragged through the mud for the past like decade or so. So that's not like great either. And then it doesn't help that Amy Pascal does not have a good track record in franchises. David Heyman's a little bit better. And Jeff Bezos just sounded like a fucking little crybaby when Barbara Broccoli called him and fucking the rest of Amazon morons.
Well, she
So-
specifically called Jennifer Salk after a meeting with Jennifer Salk, who's now left as the head of Amazon MGM. She called her an idiot. Like, they're a bunch of idiots. Like, it was after a meeting with her. So I don't know if she was referencing anybody beyond Jennifer Salk, but that was a big part of, like, when they talked about like the reasons why she ended up having to leave, is she didn't have the relationships in the world of film that she did in television. And even in television, you know, the Citadel franchise and the Lord of the Rings, the way they've gone about it, they haven't quite been huge hits, even though Reacher has been great and they've had some really good success. I think Jennifer Salk wasn't ultimately the best fit for where Amazon MGM is going now, which is like they're moving up a level. They're going to the big leagues now. They're not just going to be making great TV. They want to make great cinema. And it's like, that's why they're bringing in Amy Pascal and David Heyman. Is they're like, we need producers who know how to make a James Bond movie, or like a movie of the ilk of a James Bond. So I personally will just take a wait and see approach. I have always loved James Bond, and I just want to see another James Bond movie that is as good as Casino Royale, because I think that's still the bar, you know, like, or even
That's
Skyfall.
really
You know?
in terms of each James Bond, let's go by each. Casino Royale, GoldenEye, License to Kill, Spy Who Loved Me, and like Goldfinger. Those are like the top tier of every single, well, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service as well, but that was the only one, but it was still a great movie. So like those are all like the top tier, like best of the best from each Bond. So I would say like if we can get something even close to that I would be okay. Like I'll even take like a fucking Live and Let Die, Tomorrow Never Dies, like that. As long as we don't get fucking Quantum of Solace and Die Another Day and Moonraker levels of bad, then it's like
Well, Moonraker wasn't even supposed to be the movie like that would come out when it came out, right? Because like they were gonna put out another movie, and then like
I think so.
This space like going to space became a huge thing. So then because they were gonna make
Star Wars and shit like that, so they had
Star Wars.
Sell that off,
because the first Timothy Dalton movie, was it For Your Eyes Only or something? Whichever the first Timothy Dalton movie was, that was meant to be the next Roger Moore film, and then they decided to do Moonraker because, like you said, Star Wars came out, going to space was cool. So, I mean, but Moonraker has one of like the weirdest scenes with the way they do low gravity, or like just zero gravity. They're all moving in slow motion,
preparing for re-entry.
Yeah, because like back then they didn't have the technology for that. But also back in those times, like they built that whole, I think it was the Timothy Dalton version of James Bond, where they built this huge, the biggest soundstage I think ever. It was in Pinewood in London, outside London, right? Where they had like actual like legit real life-size submarines and a submarine base, and what was probably one of the biggest sets that was ever built for a movie. License to Kill, right? But it was one of the Timothy Dalton movies, if I remember.
Yeah, no, Timothy Dalton did License to Kill, which is great, by the way, fucking amazing.
Yes,
great.
I mean, some of the acting, you know, people are getting shot in that scene is a little jank, but for the time, yes, and to this day, those Timothy Dalton movies hold up better than a lot of the Sean Connery and Roger Moore movies does, and especially. Well, the 90s Pierce Brosnan movies definitely feel like you're watching a 90s action movie. But anyway, I hope that the next James Bond is as good as what we got from Casino Royale, Skyfall, like some of the greatest James Bond movies I think ever made. Daniel Craig, in my opinion, was the best Bond. Again, I seem to usually be in the minority when I have conversations with other Bond fans on that. But I will say always
Daniel Craig was great, though. Like
he was great.
In terms of like best is usually Connery and Craig, and to a lesser extent Pierce Brosnan, but then like Dalton is considered underrated, and like we haven't had a bad Bond. Like not even George Lazenby was bad. Like it was still a great movie, and he did a good job for that movie. So we've never had a bad, like the only really bad one was like the Casino Royale from 1967, because that didn't even match.
That's not even an official James Bond movie to this day, right?
Official. That and Never Say Never Again were not official Eon productions. So it just we don't count those.
Yeah. Well, hey, we will count the next James Bond. Well, I guess we'll see. It's kind of now that's the whole Star Trek thing. well, people are like, oh, we don't like new Trek, we like old Trek. I'm like, people are gonna be like, we liked old James Bond, we don't like new James Bond. Well, James Bond will get a new movie or a whole new series of films coming up, and Amazon MGM made a mention of that they're just getting started in London now. So we'll get to see hopefully next year a bigger update. Maybe they'll actually bring out the next Bond next year. But speaking of leading men, to start the presentation, Amazon MGM went right to one of their big guns, and they brought out somebody who is very underrated with his comedic timing, but you just have to watch Barbie to see how good of a comedian he is, and that's Ryan Gosling.
Insert news clip here.
Yes, I'm just Ken. I'll beat you any day. Let's go. Let's beat you right now.
I'll beat you off right here.
I'll beat you off right here. Yeah. I love that movie. I saw Barbie 4 times in a movie theater. No regrets whatsoever. I actually campaigned for Ryan Gosling to get a Best Supporting Actor nominee and at the Oscars, and he did. And I really there were moments when I thought he was gonna win. He didn't, and that's realistic. I understand that. But like,
RDJ for Oppenheimer. Come on.
I'm just saying. Well, it's patriarchy, male fragility. These concepts are, they go way beyond anything that anybody expected from a Barbie movie. Not to mention the depth with which I think Ryan Gosling played it. But I digress. That was already a couple of years ago. We're talking about Project Hail Mary. How awesome is this movie? Because they showed us a preview of this, and Ryan Gosling was like, we tried to put it on a TV once, it wouldn't fit. So there you go. There's this humor. But John, Project Hail Mary is a movie that's being directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. And so these are the two guys, obviously, who started up and are still the producers of the Spider-Verse franchise. But while they're still working on the third movie in that universe, they've been ahead and made this movie, Project Hail Mary, for Amazon. And quite frankly, the book, it's an Andy Weir book, which is an amazing sci-fi. Yes, it's one. I think it was his third novel that he wrote. And it's quite frankly one of the better books that he has written. And I can't wait for this to be adapted. When you look at the story of the film, it sounds fantastic because it's got aliens in it, trying to save infected suns and stuff. I'm not going to dive into the details now. But John, what are your thoughts on Project Hail Mary?
Amazing. I'm so you got Gosling, you got Lord and Miller. Yeah, they're pieces of shit that didn't pay their animators, but like outside of that, they're great. And then Andy Weir, I've heard nothing but amazing things about his work. I haven't read The Martian or Project Hail Mary, but I've heard they're great. And, I think Drew Goddard is writing this one again, like, because he wrote The Martian, the screenplay for The Martian, for Ridley Scott. So I think he might be doing it for this one again. I could be wrong on that, but I'm stoked for this. This sounds really great.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this movie when it comes out. It's going to be in theaters, and this is going to be one of those sci-fi epics that you want to see on the biggest screen possible.
I mean, it doesn't fit on a TV. Wait. Ryan Gosling said it himself. He
said it himself. I mean, you gotta believe Ken. When Ken says something, people listen. But yeah, this was a hell of a way to kick off the panel. And then they went on to talk about a bunch of other movies, and then they got to Masters of the Universe. They showed not really a trailer per se, but they gave us a behind-the-scenes reel. And it did show Nicholas Galtazine, who I guess naturally is a brunette, but he's got big blonde hair. We have seen some of the behind-the-scenes photos before. He's playing He-Man. It's a Travis Knight directed movie. I think Travis Knight directed Bumblebee, right? The Transformers movie. So according to the description in the behind-the-scenes reel, according to Deadline, it's nowhere near as campy and cheesy as the 1980s movie with Dolph Lundgren. After Red 1, this is clearly the big tentpole for Amazon MGM Studios with a big summer date. It is coming out on June 5th, 2026. Of course, the cast is amazing. They've got Alison Brie, Morena Baccarin, James Purefoy, Johannes Hakor Johannesson, that's a hell of a name, Charlotte Riley, Jared Leto, Idris Elba, Camila Mendes.
A lot of Jared Leto.
So, John, what are your thoughts on Masters of the Universe? They're saying it's not as cheesy as campy as the 1980s movie. Does that make you feel a little bit better about it?
No. Once it was revealed that it's going to partially take place on Earth, I'm like, nah, fam. Why are you remaking the shitty Masters of the Universe movie? We want to see a full-fledged fantasy movie that takes place on his world and all that shit. We don't want to see it on Earth. We don't want to see Earth in a fantasy fucking movie. That's like if like at the end of like Return of the King, like, oh my god, to get to fucking Mount Doom, we have to go through this portal. Oh my god, we're in downtown Manhattan, guys, and then we like go. It's fucking stupid. I'm sick of it. I hate it. I hate it. It's dumb.
Yeah, I for one just need to wait till they actually put out a trailer
I'll
for
see
this.
what the trailer looks like, but
Yeah.
that does not give me a ton of hope in that. But I mean, yeah, we'll wait for a trailer, see how that is. We'll see like clips and stuff. It's just like, why are they doing Earthbound fucking He-Man again? Like, I just don't get why that you need to do that.
Yeah. This is going to be interesting because like it's hard to realize this concept in live action. I still don't know how accurate he's gonna look as He-Man. Like you need to be in Arnold Schwarzenegger peak bodybuilder shape to play He-Man, I feel like. And I don't know if they got Nicholas Galtazine to that level. But it'll be interesting to see. But the movie, when they do put a trailer out there, I have a feeling that behind the scenes footage is not going to end up on the internet, at least not for a while. But hey, if it does, then we'll talk about it tomorrow, or whenever it does come out. Now, this next thing I wanted to discuss is probably my favorite part of that whole Amazon MGM presentation, which was the footage that they showed for The Accountant 2. Or if you go at the logo now, it looks starting to look like The Accountant squared. And of course Ben Affleck and John Bernthal are starring in the movie. John Bernthal, Punisher, was actually on stage alongside director Gavin O'Connor, and they talked about the sequel. When the first movie came out, it was like an MGM production, so now obviously it's under Amazon MGM banner. Ben Affleck, I don't believe was there, but they did put the trailer out on the internet, so we do have to talk about that, of course. But John, the more you see from this movie, because I know the more I see from this movie, the more excited I am. And in the words of Ben Affleck, who actually was there. So yeah, I'm reading it now. I mean, Ben Affleck was on stage. He said, it does feel great to continue the story of The Accountant. I'm thrilled to be playing this part again with this great cast. In some ways, I feel like this character never left me. So this movie comes out like this spring, like April 25th, this weeks away. John, how excited are you for this? Like having seen the new trailer.
I'm super stoked. It looks great. I love the how it's clearly a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're getting like it feels like that same world, but it still feels like different enough.
It feels
like
nothing like the first movie. Like it's a sequel, but it's a completely different kind of movie, man.
Well, the thing is, it's still like we still like see what that world is. Like it still feels for this world, but it's so different, and I love that because it like they're not just doing the same movie again, and I really like that. And I think the fact that they're bringing in John Bernthal as as a bigger role, like
Punisher meets Batman.
Yeah, Punisher meets Batman while going after a dead, J. Jonah Jameson / Commissioner Gordon.
Yep.
So you have that, and like I love how it's the brothers thing. I love how they're really like fleshing that out, and it's about family, man. Like you got to bring in the family.
Your brother never told you never threaten a man's family?
Ways, can't go wrong with that. Always. Why am I on screen? Okay. Anyway, John Bernthal. I love the way he plays off of Ben Affleck. I quite frankly, the way both of them play off of each other is like the whole brother dynamic. This feels like it's less of an action thriller like the first movie and more of a two brothers go on a road trip adventure. Except they're shooting up a bunch of folks and like trying to solve crime. So I really like what they've kind of got here, and it might just be the perfect combination of ingredients to create a sequel that is, quite frankly, about as different from the original movie as I've seen in a long time.
I fucking love like John Bernthal, saying like a guy who's like known for like these really gritty fucking roles, especially here, and saying to Ben Affleck, "Shut the front door" in this scene right here. I'm just like, is this PG-13? Like they couldn't say "shut the fuck up." So I'm like, all right.
I'm okay with that. He's clean shaven. He's looking a little bit more snazzy.
got a good year.
I like it.
He's in Daredevil, Born Again. He's in
Yeah.
this, and then he's going to be in The Amateur, which
he's
looks
right,
good.
dude. But he's writing his own Punisher special presentation.
Well, I don't know if that's coming out this year. I'm just talking about 2025.
Right, but I mean,
he's got a good,
and
a good future.
Absolutely.
Jack Quaid has a fucking hell of a year too. He did that Neighborhood Watch thing that just dropped. That looks really good. I mean, Jeffrey. Speaking of Batman that never happened and BVS, boom, got Jeffrey Dean Morgan in there. So that looks good. By the way, we're not going to talk about it. I'm just saying, like, letting you know. I mean, Jack Quaid, great. Jack Quaid with a fucking perm, awesome. Babyface Bernthal, yeah, he looks great either way. Looks great.
He does.
It's fine.
He does. I cannot wait for this movie. I watched the trailer. It's probably not the best trailer I've seen today, but I am more excited. I mean, and this is the movie that comes out sooner than pretty much every other movie that we are going to talk about today. It's at least that I can think of. So I am just bonkers excited. It's literally like 2-3 weeks away. Like it's actually literally 3 weeks away from right now. It's April 4th right now on the East Coast. It's just past midnight. This movie drops April 25th. So 3 weeks away. I can't wait to go see it. Wow. All right. So let's move on to the next studio presentation, John. Let's talk about Paramount, shall we? Paramount came on stage. They did talk about the whole Skydance merger, kind of like, addressing the elephant in the room. But then we got into the movies.
And there's a whole more controversy with that, like how due to tariffs, right? They might not be able to merge. We
will talk about that later. We've got that story coming up in quick hits, and there's a reason we don't want to discuss that in the news section because I don't care to talk about that for 15 minutes. But because we're here to talk about the movies. And speaking of the movies, the Naked Gun. Is this so? This is what you were calling a requel? It's like a reboot sequel.
It's like it's a new cast, but it doesn't. But it's set in the same continuity, kind of like Halloween 2018, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, Scream 5, where it's like new cast, but it's in the same timeline, and that's a requel, a reboot sequel.
Dude, the trailer starts with this like girl walking in to this whole hostage situation. And then, of course, she takes off the mask, and it's Liam Neeson. Then he gets up like he's on his knees. I'm like, okay, like I know what I'm playing with now. The world they established the rules of this world straight away, and I am all in. And this was probably the most hilarious trailer I have seen all day long.
I already here's the thing. I'm a huge Zaz fan. The Zucker brothers and Abrahamson, like they only made like 5 movies together. Yet they made some of the funniest comedies of all time. And the original Naked Gun, Airplane, Top Secret with Val Kilmer, R.I.P. All those movies are like Kentucky Fried Movie, all that stuff. So good, so funny. Those are some of the most classic comedies ever made. This is never going to touch the original movie. We know it's never going to be even close to touching that movie. However, this still looks really funny. Like, I think Seth MacFarlane can be funny. I know everyone hates him now, but remember,
I don't hate him.
He's been part of
he's great.
He hasn't been part of like the Family Guy writers' room in like a decade. He only did the voices, but then he recently left the show entirely. So he's like fucking hates. He's only a part of American Dad now and the Orville, if that's ever fucking coming back. But like I think I'm
starting to lose hope on that one.
He seems like a genuinely good dude. Like so, it's like fine, but. Like and Akiva Schaffer, I was never a Lonely Island fan, but I think I've seen one of his other movies, and it's funny. Like he did Hot Rod, Pop Star, all that shit, and it looks funny. And I like how, I like Liam Neeson. I'm just so fucking sick of seeing him in like the most bargain bin shitty action movies ever since fucking Taken. That's just the only thing he's been doing, and it's like kind of sad. But now he's like. Using his deadpan demeanor for something like that can work, like that's different. It's like action comedy, but at least it's a little bit different than like fucking Snowplow or whatever the fuck that movie was way back when. I mean, and some of those movies are good, like Unknown and Nonstop and
Nonstop was actually good. Nonstop was really good. I like that one.
That was the one on the plane with Julianne Moore. That was really good. And I like Run All Night. That was with Joel Kinnaman.
That was taken on a plane.
By the way, speaking of Joel Kinnaman, guys, I finally started watching For All Mankind. I'm 3 episodes.
Hell yeah!
in.
Slow clap.
So it's a good show right now. It's good. A little bit slow, but still good. Okay. But yeah, good stuff. But I like how he's doing something a little bit different, and it looks pretty funny.
It looks hilarious, and then he's like the woo woo. There's the sound of the police. That's gonna be stuck in my head for the rest of the weekend. And that song's in my head. I'm literally talking in the rhythm of the song.
And I love how like.
And then it goes like this. This is the best part of the whole thing.
Like I've seen people yell like George Kennedy. Like the you have. Oh my god!
And then this is like the best part of the trailer.
I love how they're making fun of the whole like I'm your son and I remember you, Dad. It's like they do that in every like legacy sequel. And I like how they're making fun of that. And then they're like, nope. And that's like the one joke I've seen people talk about is the O.J. Simpson joke, and it's perfect that he's dead now. And fuck him. But like, it's it's fucking great. Like I fucking love like that one joke is honestly worth the price of admission alone, even though we already saw it. But yeah, this looks fucking great.
It looks amazing. I kept telling you, I'm like, this was the movie trailer I needed today. It's like it made my day. I will probably watch this 5,000 times again before the end of the day. And yeah, Liam, this was probably the shot of the day of any trailer. Where is it? Right there. That's the shot. And I'm pretty sure there's some padding there, but like I'm okay with that. Liam Neeson, Naked Gun. Give it to me now. It comes out August 1st, so we still have.
There's the shot right there. Now I'll zoom into this. That.
We will talk about that later. There was some actually there was not a lot of bulge in the sneak peek footage. Yeah, so we'll talk about the lack thereof of the bulge. But hey, moving on to the next thing. Now, I mentioned earlier that they did address the elephant in the room, and Paramount's one of the 3 co-CEOs of Paramount, Brian Robbins, who's basically in charge of the movies division. He played up the slate of movies they've got, and then he did say, "Look, there's a lot of noise going on at our parent company with Skydance coming in and stuff. But in all seriousness, I'm excited to be back at CinemaCon and incredibly proud of what we have accomplished at Paramount Pictures in the midst of all the noise going on at our parent company. We have a terrific slate that our team has put together, and I can't wait to share that with you." John, what are your thoughts on, again, the merger with Skydance seems to be getting more and more complicated because of politics and stuff, which we're not here to talk about that, but in general, how do you think that's affecting the day-to-day operations at Paramount? Like, do you think that's having much of an effect? Do you think they'll still have a pretty good year? Because when you look at the movies they've got, I feel like they've still got a few hits to come.
Yeah,
right?
I think they'll do okay.
Yeah,
like I definitely think they'll do okay. I don't think they're gonna be fiending for stuff. So yeah, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. By the way, we've got Manos Time and Steven Ortega in the chat. So hello guys, thank you for stopping in. The chat was pretty engaged on Man of Steel talk earlier. You guys popped in at the right time. But hey, Glenn Powell also popped in alongside Edgar Wright, and they electrified CinemaCon with the first footage from The Running Man. Of course, you also see Josh Brolin on stage there alongside Coleman Domingo. Josh Brolin having a busy week at CinemaCon. I think he was there for the Weapons, the horror Western presentation for, I think that was a Warner Brothers movie, and now he's.
I thought
there
he was
for
retired
Paramount.
Now. He's gonna retire because
he was. It seems like he was joking, or I guess he didn't have the balls to follow through on that. But anyway, Glenn Powell, of course, is the lead of this new Stephen King adaptation, The Running Man. John, how excited are you about this? Because it looks like the cast is fantastic. I looked at the summary of like the synopsis of the movie, and then Edgar Wright just said at the presentation, we literally just finished shooting less than a week ago. So they've got a little bit of work to do on this. And then Glenn Powell also had some sage advice that he got from Tom Cruise. We'll get into that later. He said, probably what I get for asking Tom Cruise for advice and using a stunt double. Now that I've gone through fire, I can say I've never worked harder on a movie in my life. So they did show a clip, I believe, from the movie, and yeah, it looked fun. It looked interesting.
Oh yeah, it looks like I'm so excited for this. Like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is nothing like the book, so it's just like an 80s action movie just using the Running Man name. but I'm still, I'm still stoked. I know a little bit about the book, but I'm stoked for it. Like Edgar Wright and Glenn Powell and the cat, like it's all great. Although
Yeah.
Stephen Ortega asked, we just started talking about Naked Gun. I don't know if we're going to touch Tangled in the South Park trailer, but
So what I will say that I'll bring in the Tangled and the South Park trailer and news for quick hits. We did talk about what was the other thing? We talked about the Naked Gun, dude. We just talked about the Naked Gun. If you just
like 5
rewind
minutes
like
ago.
5 minutes, yes, you will see. We talked about the Naked Gun quite a bit, and like I said when we were talking about it, that's the shot of the day. That's the best shot of the whole day. On a day when Superman's bulge wasn't bulging, Liam Neeson came to the rescue, and he gave us a little bit of that action. So, moving on from the Running Man and some stupid ads on Deadline, which they keep forcing down my throat. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise returned to CinemaCon. This time, instead of for the Top Gun Maverick, he was talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and he's going through, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, his long hair phase. He kind of cycles through that every like 6 years roughly. It's been a long time. He hasn't been at CinemaCon for a couple of years now because he's been working on a bunch of stuff since Top Gun Maverick. But now that the next Mission Impossible movie is coming out, hey, Tom Cruise, probably the last movie star in Hollywood. He was out there. He made a surprise appearance at Cine Europe and Barcelona, and he hasn't made it to a ton of events since. But he did talk about the movie, and he was also talking about his future plans. He spent time on stage extolling The Usual Suspects Oscar Scribe winner Christopher McQuarrie, who of course has been directing all of the recent Mission Impossible movies. He said, "I didn't tell them that he was there to write the script." McQuarrie was quick on his feet and fleshed out the blue red glove scene in Ghost Protocol. He's the hero of that film that put Skydance on the map, who of course are the would-be new owners of Paramount. And so in general, Tom Cruise, as he always does, he's there to talk about like Hollywood as a whole. It's like Tom Cruise is one of those guys who puts the whole industry on his back and is like, I will gladly carry you guys to the promised land. John, what are your thoughts on everything that Tom Cruise had to say at the presentation? Again, not just talking about his own movie, but talking about like Hollywood and Paramount and Skydance, but big picture stuff. Like Tom Cruise, whenever he talks about stuff nowadays, he's doing it more than just as an actor. He's a producer. He's probably gonna one day own a movie studio at this rate. Like, what are your thoughts on Tom Cruise showing up at CinemaCon?
Just being his little goated self. Keyword little, because he's a little 5'5" boy. But I'm cool. I'm cool with that. Great. Yeah, I know, like controversy with like the big elephant in the room, but honestly, fuck it. He's great. I love his movies. It's awesome. I'm cool with him like hawking his shit. It's fine. I'm okay with it. No, I know. Just I know I'm joking about Tom Cruise. It's fine, but the difference is I don't have a Napoleon complex like he does. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, I was trying to load up the South Park trailer for Steven. Well, there we go. I think I found it. All right. Moving on to the next Tom Cruise thing, because, of course, like I said, he wasn't just there to talk about Mission Impossible, which, by the way, that trailer gets better every time I watch it. I know he survived, obviously, but I still can't wait to see him jump between two airplanes while they're in the air. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, the guy, I don't know where else you go from here, but we see that after every Mission Impossible movie. Tom Cruise did spend some time talking about and paying tribute to Val Kilmer, who, of course, a couple of days ago now passed away at the age of 65. He asked CinemaCon, the everybody in the hall and in the venue to just, take a moment of silence and remember Val Kilmer. John, what are your thoughts? And again, Tom Cruise, who, starred in Top Gun back in the day, the movie that, quite frankly, launched the careers of not just Cruise, but also Val Kilmer. And now we are here on a day where, Val Kilmer is no longer with us. And it's almost like you look at the parallel paths for a while that the two actors took. I know they've diverged quite a long time ago, but they obviously still had a friendship. And, they brought Val Kilmer back for Top Gun Maverick. They had that whole scene, which I keep saying was probably one of the most emotional scenes of that whole movie, where Maverick and Iceman talk.
Now it's just even sadder.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously they, gave the character of Iceman a send off in the film, but now the man behind Iceman is no longer with us. But Tom Cruise, I think it's as fitting as ever. I remember the other day when we were talking about what they might or may or may not do regarding Val Kilmer's passing at CinemaCon. I was like, hey, they better do a tribute, and who better to do that than Tom Cruise, of course. Like, what are your thoughts on it? Yeah, again, just Cruise asking for a moment of silence from the
that was nice. They couldn't really do a ton because he just passed away like 2 days ago, not even. So it's like it's just a little something to commemorate a great actor, and seems like a decent dude. So there was that as well. But yeah, I think that was nice of him to do that. I think that was fitting.
By the way, I missed it. Hunter Iggy in the chat. Hunter Iggy coming in with the Naked Gun references. I love it. But rest in power to Iceman Val Kilmer, who's no longer with us, but his work and legacy will stay with us for the long, long time. Before we get into the Disney thing, that song is stuck in my head, John. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of Dan and John. Everyone run for... okay. Great stuff. Thank you, man. Thank you for reminding me about that. All right. Disney did present. So Disney got the last word at CinemaCon. They were the last studio to present. They were the main event of today's presentations. And Walt Disney has obviously a lot of properties under the belt, a lot of movie studios, including all the Fox stuff. You've got Searchlight Pictures, 20th Century Studios. You've got, of course, Pixar, Marvel. I don't think Lucasfilm really had a presence. I don't know when that next Mandalorian movie is going to come out. But we did get a lot of information. We got some Avatar news as well. So we are going to start off with Tron Ares. They brought, as you can see there, Jared Leto, Honka Honka, alongside Jeff Bridges. And they talked up the new Tron Ares movie. And Jared Leto said it will hit you right in the grid. John, will it hit you right in the grid?
I will hit Jared Leto in the face because he's a gross douchebag, but I don't plan on watching this. Like Joseph Kosinski tried to get this movie off the ground for years, and they were like, nah, fam. He goes off and directs, like, speaking of Top Gun Maverick, the biggest fucking movie of the last, 5 years. And then they're like, no, let's not get that guy back to direct it. Let's get the guy who did Dead Men Tell No Tales and Maleficent 2 to direct it. And let's bring Jared Leto into it. Sure. The only thing decent about this movie is that Nine Inch Nails is doing the soundtrack, but I could just listen to that online. Everything else, and you have Jeff Bridges coming back, obviously, but I have no hope in this. It looks dumb. It sounds dumb. I'm just not gonna watch it. Yeah, Caleb, we know. You're coming on your Jared Leto.
Yeah. I hope that this is treated more like Blade Runner 2049, where they don't de-age Jeff Bridges for once. I don't want them to kind of... Obviously, the technology has gotten better since the last Tron movie, but I don't want this to be a situation where they're de-aging him for whatever reason. But the story seems pretty similar, where somebody from the grid actually ends up in the real world, which... yeah, we've seen that trope before, but I guess we'll see how good the movie is or isn't. It comes out in October of this year. I believe the date is October 10th. So we'll find out. We'll talk about it on the show when it comes out.
Also, to answer Five Ash Art's question, the reason Jared Leto is hated is because he's a literal cult leader, and he likes women that aren't legal yet. So let's just leave it at that. So he's kind of a scumbag, and he's like a faux method actor, and he's a literal cult leader, and he's just a terrible person to work with, and overall a terrible human being. So that's why people hate him. So yeah, is he a good actor? Yeah, he's a good actor, but nah.
Yeah, by the way, Five Ash, I do agree with you. I didn't enjoy those new Dune movies as much as most people did, but I don't think they sucked. I just didn't enjoy them as much as a lot of people did out there. I'm in the minority, I admit that, but yeah, you're not alone in that. Although, like I said, they didn't suck. But hey, moving on to the next thing. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, they were on stage to talk about Freakier Friday, which feels like as late of a sequel as Top Gun Maverick was. in its franchise. But they showed us some first footage from the movie. We hadn't yet seen much of that. We've seen the posters at CinemaCon and going around, and Lindsay Lohan looks great. She went through a lot of different health issues over the years, but she looks fantastic. Jamie Lee Curtis looks as good as ever. John, is this the kind of movie that you're gonna look forward to seeing? It comes out in the middle of the summer, August 8th. What are your thoughts on this?
Nah, I mean, Freaky Friday was one of those movies I watched a lot as a kid, mainly because my sisters watch it. But like, even I have to admit, later on, it's a pretty fun movie. Like, it was a childhood favorite. Like, yeah, they watched it, and I didn't want to admit to myself that, like, oh, it's a girly movie, but like, I watched it and I liked it. So
I watched it and I liked it too. It was fantastic. There's a reason why there's a huge following.
It's better than the previous movies. Like, there was the original, and then there was like a remake in like the 90s made for TV that were both but the 2003 movie is great. Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are great. Props to Lindsay Lohan. Like, she's gone through a lot, but now she's doing okay. And even though I have absolutely no interest in this movie, it just seems like a dumb cash grab to me. It's like, oh, this time 4 people get swapped instead of 2. It's double, guys. So I don't know. It's just like,
I mean, they got Mark Harmon in this.
He has to take a break from NCIS.
No, he's actually kind of left that show, although they're now doing
he did? Okay.
But they are doing an NCIS Origins show, which is about his character's origins, like a younger version. So I'm like, I can't watch that franchise anymore. They jumped the shark like a decade ago, but anyway, I mean, the story picks up for this movie a long time after the original, to the point where Lindsay Lohan's character has a daughter of her own. So
Lindsay Lohan actually has kids, but she's like been through a lot. She's done a lot, but like, it's nice to see her come out on her feet and like doing okay now, and like persevered and like survived through so much. And so it's like, that's very nice. Even though I have no interest in the movie, seeing that she's like doing okay is like just really nice to see. Because I know there's a lot of child stars that don't survive through that, but she did. I mean, Daniel Radcliffe was another that went through a lot, and he survived, and you have all that. Tom Holland had a bit of a little bit of a falter, but it's nice to see that, because child stars, that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But it's nice to see these guys like really like still doing what they love, still having a life, but like being able to like return to, a role that, a lot of people liked her as, and just kind of going on through life and owning it. And I think that's really great. Again, I don't have a ton of interest in this. It looks sillier.
You're going to go see it. Normal. I know you're going to go see it when it comes out. Probably both will. So.
I'll pirate it. But like, okay. I like Jamie Lee Curtis, and Lindsay Lohan's a pretty good actor. So I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna, but like, I'll just go watch the 2003 movie. Like, I'll just go watch that one.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, I mean, there's plenty of other movies to go see if you don't want to watch this one, because Lilo and Stitch is also coming out soon, as we know, and they showed us an extended scene from the movie at CinemaCon, and the trailer, of course, made a splash. The scene itself is out there. The D20, I think they announced a bunch of stuff at D23 last year, and then at Super Bowl, there was a trailer launch as a result of that, and that got like a shit ton of views, 158 million, as it says there. It was the second most viewed Disney live action trailer of all time. We talked about that on the show. But John, you saw this clip. It's online. You guys can go see it for yourself if you want. What did you think about the clip that they showed off here, John?
Cute, I guess. Still not gonna see it.
I actually really enjoyed it. The kid who's playing Lilo looks great. So and her performance looks adorable, and Stitch looks amazing. The gag that they show here at the end looks fantastic. I'm like, this is the kind of movie that's gonna obviously make probably close to $1 billion.
Probably.
This is the kind of movie that the kids will go to, the whole family can go see. And the kind of movie that they will probably go see not just once, but twice, maybe 3 or even 4 times. This looked really, really cute. I can tell you that this
I'm not the audience for
is
it.
gonna be fantastic.
I will say, I keep saying this. I expected Stitch to look a lot worse, so I'm glad that he looks like halfway decent.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yes. Yep. Again, not everybody's cup of tea, but I for one am gonna go watch this movie and have fun. Now, speaking of having fun, the cast of the Thunderbolts were having quite a bit of fun because they arrived in style in what looks like a car that would be fitting for their characters in the movie itself, a red limo that looks straight out of the 70s. And then David Harbour gets out of the driver's seat. These guys are just already just ready to get things going. They're probably laughing inside, sitting inside. David Harbour just playing it up, man. I love it. Because isn't he like doing something to that effect in the movie as Red Guardian? He's like sort of a driver or something, kind of like what Logan was in that film.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, Hydra, fancy. Anyway.
Fancy. This is great. I love it. I love it. Oh, look, Shaggy.
Poor Wyatt Russell. Did he did the accent, right?
He did the what?
Whatever. But yeah, it's so fucking ridiculous. And he had the Wheaties box. He did have the Wheaties box.
He did have the Wheaties box. All right, so they did show footage of Fantastic Four. That footage has not made it onto the interwebs yet. So we'll just have to wait for when they do put that out. We did get a look at the female Silver Surfer, which looked fantastic based on everybody who was in the in the arena. And then, of course, they did put out a new behind-the-scenes making of featurette for Thunderbolts. So that was all part of the Marvel presentation, which took place right around the time the Superman footage made it online. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Kevin Feige wasn't present. There was a pre-taped video message. They said that the reason why he wasn't there is because he's working on Avengers Doomsday. He's busy with that. But yeah, we got the cast of the movie. Not everybody from Thunderbolts was there.
Dan, you have a question. Speaking of Lilo and Stitch, Dan, are you more excited to see How to Train Your Dragon or Lilo and Stitch?
That's a difficult one because I don't know if either movie is particularly like personally interesting to me, but I think as just an exercise in watching movies and just watching fun movies, I will go see both of them. If I did have to pick, though, I think I personally am looking forward to Lilo and Stitch a bit more because I feel like there's like it's more of a turn your brain off and just watch and enjoy kind of a movie for me, because I kind of know I'm just gonna have like a fun with the film. Whereas with How to Train Your Dragon, I'll be looking to see how it's adapting the story of the animated film, which, by the way, we will get into the reactions from the screening this week at CinemaCon, and it looks like a lot of people are saying, hey, it's pretty good. It doesn't start out that great, like the opening few minutes aren't the best, but then it picks up. And unlike the rumors or the speculation, it's actually not a frame-by-frame remake of, or a shot-by-shot remake of the original. So that's interesting. I mean, but we'll get into that. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I would say Lilo and Stitch probably is a little slightly higher on my list. Not by much, but slightly higher. But John, I mean, the Thunderbolts clip that they put out, I wanted to kind of get your opinion on this. I know that you may still not really go to see this, but it looked really fun. Like the shooting of the filming of this movie. Again, they're really playing up the sarcasm. It's like, you know, the making of Thunderbolts, kind of not really. Like they put it in parentheses at the title screen. And they do show how a lot of the actors did many of their own stunts. Now, granted, they probably still had a lot of stuntmen do work, but
David Harbour actually got thrown out of like a 40-story window. He really wanted to do that for no airbag too. He just, you know,
he just took the hit. He just took it like a man. But they did talk about specifically a stunt that, quite frankly, I was like, well, that's pretty much something Tom Cruise would be doing, which is base jumping off the Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is, by the way, a really beautiful building. That looks amazing. And then you could see Florence Pugh is there herself. They did have her on wires, but it looks like they had her kind of jump off this sequence, which we've already seen in one of the trailers. They shot it for real, and so she does actually do it. It's not like she actually flies all the way down and all of that. That might be CGI, that might be a stunt woman doing it, but they did show that she at least did a part of the stunt, like that shot where you see her face. They do have a few different angles. She did that for real,
Why
which is
the fuck are
which
you
is
talking
fun.
about Nosferatu right now? What the fuck are you talking? He's like, watch Strange Darling. That movie rocked. No, it didn't. That fucking movie's overrated as fuck. It's just like, what are you talking about? We're talking about Thunderbolts. Why are you talking about Nosferatu?
It looked fun. The whole clip looked pretty fun to me. I think the whole sequence where she's jumping off looked very, very interesting. I probably want to get a more extended look at this. You see this shot here, they've got her on wires and she actually does it. And obviously, they're not letting her go all the way down. But John, are you more excited seeing this footage for the movie or less excited?
I wouldn't say I'm excited. It looks okay. Like it looks like a boring, bland Marvel movie, but like I do like the cast. So like maybe, and we see Sentry, which is a cool character. So like maybe we'll get something out of it, but like I don't know.
Yeah. Enterprising, I agree with you. The marketing has been on point. I think they kind of caught wind of how people were talking about this movie and then just changed tack, because the early marketing for this didn't have that meta nature to it, but then they've kind of switched gears, and I think they're completely nailing it from here on, and I just can't wait for this movie. May 2nd is coming out. It's gonna sneak up on us. It's less than a month away. And yeah, Caleb, it does look like more of a real movie than like the CGI slugfest that a lot of Marvel movies have been of late. So I can't wait for that. But John, they did, as I mentioned earlier, they did show some Fantastic Four footage, which apparently electrified the crowd in attendance. We saw Silver Surfer for the first time in there. Vanessa Kirby's pregnant in the movie. So there's a few
confirmed.
new pieces
I
of
was
detail.
wrong. I apologize.
That's happening.
Anyway.
So
why
this
would
is
they do? Here's the thing. Why would the fuck would they do Annihilus? Because Annihilus was tied to her when she was pregnant. I don't know, but whatever.
Now this footage isn't online yet, but it was kind of like a new trailer, so I hope they do put that up eventually. They might be just waiting for either tomorrow or another time. But damn, like, because they want to obviously not have that steal all the spotlight from Thunderbolts, where they brought the whole cast out.
Five Ash's entire personality is just hating on good movies. That's not a personality trait. You're just being a prick. Like,
okay, so I wanted to kind of quickly read what the trailer actually was about. So in the trailer, we learn up top that Reed and Sue, they are expecting a baby, and they get a nice shot of Kirby rocking a bump, which we saw. Remember, we saw some concept art with that. So I guess that concept art was real. This would mark the first time Marvel has featured a working mom superhero. That's true. At least one who, isn't delusional about that she has kids where she doesn't, and goes to another universe to, I don't know. Anyway, that whole Wanda storyline still doesn't make any sense to me. But in their timeline, the group of heroes are noted celebrities. We already know this. They appear on talk shows and are subject to fawning thank you videos from children and firemen. Wow. Okay. It seems there's nothing they can't face, even the prospect of finding babysitters while saving the world. So they do humanize the characters even more. But then we get to see a Silver Surfer. I forget who's playing Silver Surfer. Do you remember?
Julie Gardner. She was in Wolfman.
Julia. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. We've kind of talked about. She's said a few things about the movie, and she's when she's talked about the role she has, the scale of the production. Now, in the trailer, she tells the squad that their planet, aka Earth, in their universe has been marked by alien powers for annihilation. And Kirby then says, we will face this together. We will fight it together and get this, John, as a family. So...
Hell yeah.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Vanessa Kirby is actually in the Fast and Furious movie. She is the daughter, not the daughter, she's the sister of Jason Statham's character, who I'm forgetting the name of in the moment right now.
If I had a nickel for every action franchise that featured Vanessa Kirby as a relative of a character that we already know of, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Well, she's in Fast and Furious. She's obviously now in Marvel. She's in the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah,
the last 2 or 3.
She was related.
So
She was the daughter of one of the characters from the first movie.
oh, really? I forgot that that's how they connected that. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, hey, so I'm guessing she's gonna stick around with that franchise. I don't know if she's in the
hopefully.
new one or not, but we'll see. But hey, that's incredible. So we get a good look at Silver Surfer. It looks like Silver Surfer may or may not be entirely a villain in the movie. Of course, we know we're getting Galactus in the film. Aliens have marked the planet for annihilation. I'm sure that's going to have something to do with how the Fantastic Four end up in Avengers Doomsday and then later on Secret Wars. So yeah, and yo, Frank Richards, right? That's the name of the baby potentially. That's what we assume it would be, or right? Legion, not Legion. What's his name? No, Frank Richards is a different character. He's one of the
Yeah, just I think
most
he's just
powerful
Frank.
characters in Marvel.
Yeah, one of the
Um,
most powerful characters. Yep.
So yeah, I can't wait for that. That's so yeah. Again, we had some concept art about this that we looked at, where the Avengers, Secret Wars, and Doomsday concept art was mostly debunked, but then there was at least one of the family sitting, the Fantastic Four sitting on a couch, and then yeah, Invisible Woman Sue has like a baby bump, so it looks like that's for real. So that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait for this trailer to drop online. We didn't get that today, but maybe we will soon. Speaking of trailers. They didn't really give us one for Avatar, the Fire and Ash, but what they did do is they showed a bit of footage, and then Zoe Saldana came on, on the stage that is, and then Fire and Ash, we got a logo for that. It's of course a red, yellow, orange, amber colored logo. Zoe Saldana was the only one I believe they brought out, so no James Cameron, and we didn't get any of the other cast members. And the footage that they showed wasn't a whole hell of a lot either, but
Right.
given the movie comes out on December 19th, I'm okay with that. But based on the description here, the footage was meant to give us a taste of the new peaceful wind traders who are allies to the Na'vi and the punk rock ash people with red tainted locks and their four-winged flying beast. We do see Jake Sully and his family finding voyage on the wind traders squid-looking balloon flying ships. Okay, so they've got hot air balloons.
So
Um,
Figure Drawing is hoping that I don't like Avatar. He wants to be like, doesn't think that a man of culture. He still wants me to be a man of culture. I don't hate Avatar. It's like mid. Both movies are just mid. Like they're fine, but they're not great movies. They're like visual spectacles, but that's the case. I could just mute the fucking thing and just like look at it. Like it's like a live painting. But like outside of that, it's kind of just generic, tropey, cliched garbage for the most part. And they're fine. Like the acting and the technical is obviously like acting's okay, technical is amazing, but like the story is just blah, and it's just not very engaging.
Well, hopefully the third movie will do something a little bit different. Although, based on what we've seen so far, it kind of looks like they're doing the same thing again, except in a different environment. But James Cameron did send in a taped message, and in that message he said, "I'm sending you a reel to give you a taste of the spectacle and the increased emotional heart and soul of the third movie." He said he's in New Zealand currently finishing work on Avatar: Fire and Ash, and he said, "I think we can agree this is a good use of my time since this sucker's coming at us like a freight train," which sounds like exactly something that James Cameron would say. But he did mention that I hope this film can provide a shot in the arm of theater owners because we are still struggling with the 1-2 punch of the pandemic and streaming. So he also then went on to mention something that I think John might differentiate this movie from the previous ones. The Sully family are really put through the ringer in this one as they face not only the human invaders but new adversaries, the Ash people. So yes, much like Avatar: The Last Airbender, that firebenders are evil. So I guess that's confirmed now.
And they're bringing in air nomads, and it's like, bro, you're not even being fucking subtle anymore.
But between the first two movies, it's made over $5 billion and already has 4 Oscars. So I mean, hey, this movie I'm sure will make at least $1.5 billion. Any more excitement for this, John, given what James Cameron has talked about here?
I'm curious about all these movies and where they'll go. I know like Stephen Lang was like, fucking the fourth movie made me cry. And then like they had no studio notes whatsoever. So it's like, all right, cool, I guess. Zoe Saldana, the Academy Award winning Zoe Saldana, Hawkeye.
By the way, we do have KC in the chat, and then Figure Drawing is here as well.
Casey, the last ass bender.
He did say, Casey says Avatar 2 was better than the first one. I would say it's, in my opinion, debatable. I think the VFX are better. The CGI looks a lot better because obviously a lot of technological advancements happened in the 13 years between the two. But I think that's where people might be like expecting another big leap with the third movie, even though clearly the amount of time that's gone by between the second and the third will be a fraction of what took between the first and the second movie. But hey, thank you for stopping in, Figure Drawing and KC. The third movie is going to be about the fire people essentially. So there you go. Well, moving on.
Figure Drawing, at least Caleb is like knowingly ironic about it. He's doing it for fun.
He's doing it for fun. We will get into your comments, by the way, in DCU Daily. We do have a Q&A session coming up, so do stick around.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of you guys.
Caleb's comments.
We do.
So stay tuned for that, Caleb.
Absolutely, we do. Caleb has a ton of comments in all of our videos, and so we do have a couple saved up. Now, Zootopia 2 was the next one up, and Kehu Kwan was out there presenting this. He introed a scene of Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde in therapy with Quinta Brunson's Dr. Fuzby. The first Zootopia was thoroughly enjoyable. I love the scene where they go and like the sloth is taking forever at I think it was a DMV or something. So I can't wait for this. I'm surprised it's taking them this long to make a Zootopia 2. The last one came out in 2016. It made $1 billion and then actually won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature that year, John. So are you excited for the sequel? Were you a fan of the first one?
Oh, yeah, the first one's great. I'm curious about this because on the one hand, we could get something, even though it's Disney versus Pixar, we could be getting something as great as like Inside Out 2, or we can get something as painfully mid as Moana 2. I hope for the former, but I'm like because they're announcing so many sequels at this point, and I'm like, do these things need a sequel? Does this need a sequel? So I'm hesitant, but I'm after seeing Inside Out 2 and how good that was, even though it's Pixar and not Disney, I still have more hope, a little bit more hope for Zootopia 2 than I did before. So I'm not gonna say anything totally yet, but I'm gonna reserve judgment until we get something. But I'm a little bit more on board than when I was when it was first announced.
We've got all kinds of opinions in the chat. Figure Drawing is like Zootopia 1 was a classic, and then Casey's like it's gonna be DOA. So on two opposite ends of this spectrum there, and then Enterprising with probably the comment of the day.
Hi, Jose. We haven't talked about the sneak peek yet, so
you're just in time. We're getting to it.
We're getting there. Well, not just in time. We're still gonna talk about like another hour of news stuff.
Yeah, well. Not exactly. Actually, we're kind of mostly through all the news. We're gonna get to quick hits pretty soon. But what I will say though, the first Zootopia's message was all about inclusivity, right? And they use like all these different species of animals living together, which I think is a message that is as relevant as ever. And speaking of which, Kehu Kwan plays a snake in the movie. He's supposedly one of the first snakes in Zootopia. And so they're two
clips. Like Reptilia is like that's where they're like going for the next movie.
And they showed two clips. The first one was like a group therapy session, and the second one you kind of get to meet Kehu Kwan's character, the new character. So yeah, I'm excited for this. I hope these clips or a whole trailer hopefully comes out soon, because this is the kind of movie that I've been waiting to see for a long time.
You know, I'm like, you know, and Kehu Kwan, always based, always amazing. Even though Love Hurts wasn't that great, he was good in it. And on top of the fact, guys, Zootopia is gonna get the furries, and then now Zootopia 2 is gonna get the scalies. Isn't that great, Dan? They're getting all encompassing with all the weird fetishes.
All the different groups. I like it. It's all about representation, you know. You want to feel like you are seen in the works that you admire. So that's what Zootopia is all about. And yeah, they brought all of these different celebrities, from Jeremy Strong on the right all the way to Jeremy Allen White on the left, and everybody in between: Zoe Saldana, David Harbour, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but you know, Predator: Badlands was also there. Elle Fanning was there to talk about that movie.
Super excited for that. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, Prey was great. I can't wait for the next one. I think Predator: Badlands is going to be in a theater, right? So, I'm glad that the franchise is finally gonna be back on the big screen. By the way, guys, hit that like button. There's like twice as many of you guys watching as there are likes on the video. We do appreciate that. It's one small click for you guys, but it makes a big impact for us, as Fiona would say. Now, talking about the rest of the presentation, John, there wasn't much else that we missed here. We kind of talked about a bunch. They did talk about The Amateur, which is like the next movie up in terms of the ones that they presented. And it comes out literally, I think, in a week from now. So we'll be talking about it next week, reviewing it. Rami Malek, of course, stars in the movie. Lawrence Fishburne. We talk about how the trailer for this, the ad spots are everywhere. So I'm excited for this one. It might surprise us all. Elle Fanning was, as I mentioned, talking about Predator Badlands. That looked very, very interesting. I think she was joined. Who was she joined by on stage? It was let's see. Joined Cripps. I don't know who that is, but Dan Trachtenberg is the director of the movie. He wasn't there. The movie is set on a future in the future on a remote planet where a young predator outcast from his clan finds an unlikely ally in Elle Fanning's Thea character and embarks on a treacherous journey in search of the ultimate adversary. That sounds like a very different kind of Predator movie. I like that they're experimenting with the stories here. I'm very interested.
Now I'm less excited.
I, for one, want to see that because that's
there were
very different from other Predator
There were
movies.
rumors that it was going to take place during World War II, and I'm like, that sounds awesome. This kind of sounds a bit generic and just kind of sounds like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a little bit. So I'm like, I'm still excited. I'm still curious with how they're going to do this, but now I'm kind of a little bit less excited.
Well, we'll get the movie soon enough, and we'll find out if it's good or not. November 7th of this year. Jeremy Strong and Jeremy Allen White were both on stage. Of course, we've got Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Jeremy Strong as Bruce. Oh, actually, not. It's the other Jeremy. Jeremy Allen White is playing Bruce Springsteen. And then Jeremy Strong plays Bruce Springsteen's longtime manager, John Landau.
Okay, wait. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was great. I'm not saying it was bad, because Jose is like, whoa, no, don't twist my words. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was great. However, I'm just saying, sounds like they're essentially just redoing that plot, even though we just got that movie last year. So it's like, it could be different. Obviously, we'll have to see a trailer, a clip, anything to help differentiate. So hopefully it's not just that again, and it's something innovative and creative and interesting. I trust Dan Trachtenberg. I'm just from what it was originally going to be, I was like, oh, that sounds fucking amazing. Doing the Predator in different time periods is awesome. I remember somebody was like, oh, do it in fucking samurai era Japan, and have it be fucking Shogun meets Predator, and it's that sounds awesome. A pirate Predator movie, do it in different time fucking era periods, different eras. That just sounds fucking baller as fuck. But here it's just I understand that they're doing on their planet, which is interesting, but it just sounds like they're doing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes again, which is also a 20th Century Studios production. So it's just can you do something a little bit more creative than that? Hopefully it is. I trust it a little bit, but not totally. So that's what I mean in terms of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yes, Predator Western. Boom. There you go. So yeah.
A couple of things to round out the Disney panel. They also presented 20th Century Studios' Ella McKay, which is the movie for that Emma Mackey was there to present, and alongside Jamie Lee Curtis, who both star in that movie. And so that looked very interesting as well. And James L. Brooks, who's a Disney legend, he accepted the Cinema Verite Award from CinemaCon, which is the Legend Award, basically, Lifetime Achievement Award, if you want to call it that. He directed this movie. This comes out on September 19th. So that looked interesting. And then in terms of other Searchlight news, they then presented the Searchlight Pictures, The Roses, which is directed by Jay Roach and written by Tony McNamara. It's starring Olivia Colman, Benedict Cumberbatch, Andy Samberg, Allison Janney, Belinda Bromilo, Sunita Mani Nikuti Gatwa, Jamie Demetriou, Zoe Chow, and Kate McKinnon. What a hell of a cast that is.
Isn't this the War of the Roses remake we were talking about the other day?
I think so. Isn't it? This is the one where Tom Hardy left and then Benedict Cumberbatch came in and replaced him.
I think so. I think that's what it is.
It is. You're right. They're saying it's a reimagining of the 1989 classic film The War of the Roses, based on the novel by Warren Adler. So
there,
it opens nationwide August 29th. So there you go. Now that pretty much rounds out the presentation for Disney, and then Disney kind of basically wrapped up what CinemaCon was. So that was the last studio presentation for the week. CinemaCon's still going on tomorrow, but everything they're talking about there tomorrow, I believe, is mostly just other panels for the industry members, and not really any more movie announcements per se. So Disney was the final studio to present, and that kind of wraps up what has been an amazing, insightful, fantastic week at CinemaCon. So guys, let us know down below in the comments if you enjoyed all the different news announcements, trailers, inside looks, because we'll be here to talk about. I'm sure there'll be more to discuss with all the movies that they brought out, all the different studios, from Amazon MGM to Paramount to Disney, to earlier in the week you had Warner Brothers, you had Universal Pictures, Focus Features, you had Neon, the first time ever. You talked about Amazon MGM today, and then they had who am I missing at this point? Warner Brothers had DC Studios as well in their presentation, and we're going to get into more of that in a few minutes. It was an eventful week. It was just an eventful week. Even Angel Studios had a few things. And then Neon showed up, talked about how they're like winners of 2 of the last 4 Best Picture Oscars, and just dropped the mic and showed us a bunch of footage from their new movies. So CinemaCon is a fantastic week. I mean, we've talked about probably several dozen different movies over the course of like the last few days, and it's been tiring, but it's been incredibly rewarding. So thank you guys. Sony, another one presenting their slate with not just the Spider-Verse movies, but also more details, the new title of Spider-Man 4. So let us know in the comments what you thought about all of that. But John, in the meantime, we have to talk about quick hits. So why don't you hit that good music, and we'll get going with that. And Steven Ortega, you asked us earlier to talk about the Tangled news. So I came across this actually earlier, but I hadn't brought it into the show, but thank you for the reminder. So Disney's Tangled live action movie has, for the time being, hit the pause button. Now, the director of The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman, Michael Gracie, was set to direct this movie. It was meant to be kind of like a musical, and it was going to be essentially adapting the 2010 movie into live action. But it looks like the project, while it was in development for the longest time, it's currently in a pause. Now, the reason they say, according to The Hollywood Reporter, which broke this exclusive news, is the reason why they're pausing production for now is because of what happened with Snow White and that whole debacle.
Yes.
So
it also doesn't help that Michael Gracie's last movie was like the biggest bomb of the year so far, or of last year, last few months with the Robbie Williams movie. And it's probably good because the script is by the same fucking idiot who did Thor Bitch and Blunder. So it's like, nah, fam, don't do that.
I mean, that movie had some moments, but largely a disappointment. I thought Ragnarok was much superior.
Yeah, which is not saying much, but thank God Tangled isn't going to get ruined by stupid bullshit. And maybe, Rachel Zegler not shutting her mouth, maybe she was the hero all along. Now we're hopefully going to get it'll be a domino effect. We're finally going to stop the live action remake train. One can only hope, guys. Now, but we're still going to get the Gen Z Hercules movie, or like the fucking Aristocats remake by Questlove. So we'll see. Let's hope those get canceled, but a man can dream.
Well, look, the original Tangled movie I don't think was begging for a remake, but the live action version, I don't think anybody's like, oh my god, when is this coming out? So like, I'm okay that they're gonna take their time. The debacle that is and was Snow White, they spend way too much money on that movie. Like, there's no reason for that movie to have cost them $370 million with marketing included. You could get that movie done and out the door for less than half that much money and get better results. Like, I just don't get it. Like, Disney has spent way too much money. money trying to fix something that they should have shelved or started over, or just said, you know what, we'll try again in 10 years. But at least now, as a result of that, they're going to take a more cautious approach with Tangled. So we'll see. We'll see if that becomes active again. I mean, I'm sure Michael Gracie might have other projects lined up as well. So, maybe there is a director change and maybe a new screenwriter along the way as well. They might just completely redo this thing. So we'll see. Now, another thing that Steven Ortega brought to us was the South Park trailer. The season 27 teaser came out, John. I don't know if you've had a chance to check this out. It looked interesting. I kind of scrubbed through it a little bit. The acclaimed drama returns. Are you interested at all? Are you still a fan of South Park 27 years in?
This might be, sacrilege, but I've actually never watched South Park. I know of South Park. I know a lot of the jokes, a lot of the episodes, a lot of the memes.
Dude, they've got Diddy in the background. They had a Wicked poster.
So, fucking great. Like, it just South Park is just one of those shows that just can't die, because it's just like, unlike a lot of other adult animated shows, it feels
Zordon.
Tron. No, that's from Tron.
That's from Tron? Oh, okay. Never mind.
It's not Zordon.
Air traffic controllers. That's a problem these days. Commentary on that.
But yeah, I've never watched the show, but I respect it heavily. Maybe one of these days I'll finally sit down and watch it. But it's such a fucking legendary show that I can't help but love the idea of it and love what it has done. And yeah, fucking just don't eat Cartman's chili and we should be A-okay.
It looks exciting. I will check the trailer out in my own time, but just going off of what I found here, yeah, the French want their Statue of Liberty back. Diddy is in space. Air traffic control. All the themes very, very with the times, as South Park always is.
Oh, Elites,
yeah.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing, my friend? Thank you for
they are. I think they are planning to remake Oliver and Company. I don't think Billy Joel would want to come back though. They'll probably get Post Malone to fucking play Dodger this time around, or whatever. Was it Dodger or was it some? Anyway, but yeah, great show. Respect to it.
Yeah,
but not gonna watch it. Sorry,
I'll give it a shot.
26 fucking seasons.
Over the years, I've sort of weaved in and out of South Park, but all of these themes shared in the trailer look very interesting and very timely to me, so I will definitely give that a shot. All right, moving on to the next thing, the next quick hit. Of course, How to Train Your Dragon. According to a lot of the people who saw it this week at CinemaCon, it dazzled, and the first reactions came in saying that it was visually stunning, which I could tell that from just the trailer we've seen so far. People called it fantastic and a gorgeous reimagining. I just wanted to kind of quickly go through some of the reactions. Scott Menzel wrote on his Twitter saying, How to Train Your Dragon is spectacular, a visually stunning and emotionally engaging retelling of the animated classic. The director recreates the magic of the original with lots of action, humor, and heart. Then when you go through some of the other reactions, you've got the movie podcast producer Daniel Bautista saying the movie is a gorgeous reimagining. One of the most beloved animated films of all time. Is full of heart. Then Tessa Smith wrote that the movie has all the charm of the original enhanced into something I never thought it could accomplish. The cast is adorable or incredible, and the dragon's adorable. I lost count of how many times I cried. This is something truly fantastic. Gizmodo's Germaine Lucier said, live action movie captures the magic of the original in almost every way. All the big moments are there, all the heart and excitement too. Wonderful performances all around. So overall, it looks like the reviews are really, really glowing, John. I know these aren't full reviews; these are just reactions. So sometimes that these tend to be a little more positive than maybe the full review. But upon your first inspection of people's reactions who saw the whole thing at CinemaCon, what are your thoughts? Does this make you more excited? Maybe this movie might overperform, or it might be better even than what you thought it would be? I did hear that when some of the people were talking about the movie in a bit more detail, that it starts out a bit slow, a little more by the numbers, what you saw in the animated film. But then as soon as you see the meet cute here shown, which is the iconic moment from the franchise, from there the movie kind of takes off. and starts to get better and better. And then they go from being sort of like would feel like a shot-by-shot remake to doing things their own way. And we know that they've already greenlit the second movie now. Universal announced that this week, that the second live-action remake, aka How to Train Your Dragon 2 in live action, is coming out in only a couple of years from now, 2027. So yeah, this franchise isn't going anywhere. Moving on to some X-Men news. A bit of a bummer. Halle Berry recently talked about the idea of coming back as Storm for Avengers Doomsday, and she said it's not going to be there, referring to if they were to announce another set of cast members with director chairs. She's saying my name will not be there on any of the director's chairs. Keep waiting, it's just not going to be there. She told the Black Girl Nerds. So John, are you surprised and are you happy that she's not coming back as Storm? Or at least as of now, she isn't.
Halle Berry was never that great as Storm. She's a good actress. She's fine. I never really cared about her Storm, and they didn't really flesh out her character that much in those movies. So she was just kind of there as like a big heavy hitter. Like, oh, we need someone that has like a good power set. Throw her in there. So that was kind of it for her. So yeah, I think that's probably a good thing.
Okay. For your drawing says Halle is fine indeed. I would have loved to see her back. Honestly, I think she's aging like fine wine, and we heard that there were rumors that she might have been negotiating to potentially come back. So I guess this might mean that the negotiations fell apart, and it's just not going to work out. So hey, I'm a bit disappointed personally, but I'm sure a lot of people, if they didn't like her version of the character, then they're like, you know what, good riddance. But moving on to the next thing, Phineas and Ferb, the revival gets a premiere date on Disney Channel and Disney Plus, and they actually put out a first trailer, as you can see right here, John. I, growing up, watched this show. I loved it. It wasn't my favorite thing on Disney Channel, but it was one of the newer things that I actually liked. And it's coming back now. And I thought it was only going to be on Disney Plus, but apparently it's also going to be on Disney Channel. So it will premiere on June 5th on Disney Channel, and the next day on June 6th, you'll get it on Disney Plus. Will you be watching it? It looks like the characters haven't aged a day, so they're going back to all the usual adventures. Harry the Platypus. Doofenshmirtz Incorporated.
Doofenshmirtz Evil
Incorporated. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the show it was one of those shows I watched like a little bit of. I didn't watch it religiously because I was like kind of getting older, so I was kind of like growing out of like watching like Disney and Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. So I never watched a ton of the show, but I'll probably give it a watch. I just fucking love Dan Povenmire so fucking much. That man is like wholesome and lovely and wonderful and just absolutely amazing in every sense of the word. And so like bro effortlessly created so many people's childhoods and made childhoods that much better. So I respect that. So I'm probably going to watch it just for that, because we love Dan Povenmire in this house, fellas. So, I'll probably watch it.
I will watch it too.
I'm just curious how they're gonna do it, because it was like they did like a 10 years later in the series finale. So I'm curious how that's gonna like work.
I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, are they just kind of go back and like, oh, there was a bunch more adventures we didn't talk about? Because the characters look the same. So, but yeah, this is one of those shows that I don't know why they stopped running it when they did. I suppose like after so many seasons they ran out of ideas. But I guess now they found some new ones. So there we go. The Running Man, John, we didn't talk about this earlier, but The Running Man was one of the many movies, I think we might have mentioned it, but it was one of the many movies that they presented at the Paramount CinemaCon presentation. Glenn Powell was out there, and he spilled some beans on the advice that Tom Cruise gave him, saying, film yourself running as soon as possible. You don't look as cool as you think. Some essential advice for anybody who wants to be an action star, and considering Glenn Powell will be the Running Man, filming himself running, who else is better to give advice on that than Tom Cruise, Sean?
Oh yeah, of course.
The man's running form is impeccable.
The man is gonna stop the end of the world by running.
Exactly. He's gonna run to the end of the world and stop the bad guys. And now, He's a mentor to the likes of Glenn Powell, telling them, hey man, if you want to get it right, you better film yourself running, and then you'll find out just how good you are or are not. We mentioned earlier, John, that the Paramount merger with Skydance seems to be hitting some snags now with some, outside political forces coming into play and such. But obviously Paramount's still, forging ahead while this merger is still happening. Skydance will come in and add a lot of money to the coffers of the new company, and then they obviously have a lot of projects that Skydance has been producing themselves, and then they have a lot of collaborative projects with Paramount. They finance all the Mission Impossible movies. But it looks like this year the new leadership wasn't able to do anything because it's not official yet. Are you surprised that it's taking as long as it is? And do you think with all the obstacles that have recently kind of gotten in the way of this, that it might delay the closing of this whole transaction? Because they were supposed to finish by around this time in April, but it's looking less likely right now that it will actually happen.
Yeah, it's just a lot of complicated stuff that we won't get into here, but it's just kind of sucks. But hopefully they can get to that fact, because Paramount is just kind of like just right there on like the cusp of bankruptcy. So hopefully Skydance can help them out. But I mean, they have been helping them out, but I mean, like, from what they want to do. So hopefully they can. I hope it goes well for them, but it's a little dodgy.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just gonna be interesting to see where things go. By the way, the chat is going wild on the whole Rachel Zegler is the reason for Snow White failing. All I will say is and you talked about this, I think it was this week or last week when we talked about Snow White. There's a million different reasons. It's a death by 1,000 cuts situation with Snow White. It's not just something that Rachel Zegler did. It's not just something that, Gal Gadot did. There's a million different reasons why. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest reason why the movie's not doing well is it's not a good movie. It's just, I think that's what it comes down to. Like, there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to any of that, news stuff and all the paparazzi stuff. Most people just want to go see a good movie in the theaters, and a lot of people who showed up didn't see a good movie. And at the end of the day, I think that's the biggest contributing factor to Snow White not doing well. But speaking of CinemaCon, John, Luca Guadagnino also showed up for the second night in a row, I think, talking about his other movie, After the Hunt. And this was with Amazon MGM. This was actually yesterday's on the Wednesday finale for the night of presentations. And they brought out Andrew Garfield on stage and Ayo Edebiri as well. Julia Roberts is also in the movie. What are your thoughts on After the Hunt? Have you heard about this film? Luca Guadagnino keeping himself busy. He's also, of course, working on potentially the new Sergeant Rock movie for DC Studios.
Yes. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's his fourth movie with Amazon MGM. Of course, he made Challengers most recently, so this will be the next one. The Italian filmmaker is busy, and Andrew Garfield, Ayo Edebiri, of course, Amazon MGM pulling out the stops, bringing out the big guns. So, yeah, that was part of the presentation. Now, the next story I wanted to kind of quickly get into is, and this I think is the last quick hit, and then we'll dive into
one
DC
bear
news.
star to another.
Yeah, talking about Jeremy Allen White transforming into Bruce Springsteen in the movie Deliver Me from Nowhere. This was part of was it the Paramount presentation? No, this was a Disney presentation. So this is based on Deliver Me from that's the biopic based on Bruce Springsteen's The Making of his 1982 album Nebraska. And John, my question to you would be, is this going to be the next big musician biopic hit, like what we have been seeing of late? Timothée Chalamet took his shot at it last year with Bob Dylan, and now we've got a Bruce Springsteen biopic coming up.
I'm more than likely to watch this because I really like Bruce Springsteen, and apparently I'm the weird one because apparently the entire chat hates fucking Bruce Springsteen. So we'll see. But I like Jeremy Allen White. Yeah, he's a piece of shit, but he's a great actor. I like Bruce Springsteen, so I'm relatively, I wouldn't say excited for this. I'm like, it seems interesting. I think it'll be good.
I'm looking forward to it. You know what? Jeremy Allen White, I think, is an underrated actor, despite the fact that he's won a couple of Emmys. I still think on the big screen he hasn't done nearly as much. So this will be interesting to see if this could catapult him into even bigger roles in movies. So we'll have to just wait and see. Jeremy Strong never smiles, never didn't do it at the CinemaCon, probably never will. But with that, guys, we will wrap up the segment, the news segment and quick hits. So John, if you mind, let's hit a pause on that quick hits music, shall we?
Quick hits music.
So let us know, guys, in the comments down below, which of the quick hits, which of the news stories did you like? The CinemaCon coverage this week has been, I think, extensive. We've been talking for 3 hours literally every day. But now, guys, as always, it's time for the main event. It's time to switch gears. Time for the main part of the show that you guys are all here for. So welcome on in to another episode of DCU Daily. And today, oh my God, today we have to talk about that Superman sneak peek. They decided they weren't going to sit on that for very long. They were like, all right, we brought a bunch of people to the Minecraft movie to go see it in theaters for a few hours, and now we're going to drop this thing online. And I think it leaked at one point, so that might have also contributed to that. But nonetheless, we'll talk about it, we'll break it down, we'll go into all the details. But we also have a couple of other things regarding both the leak of that sneak peek, but also we have some news regarding casting for Superman that we didn't know about until now. And of course, James Gunn gave us a bit of a hint as to when we might get the next Superman trailer as well. So to do that and so much more, as always, I've got John with me. John, which part of today's DC coverage are you most excited about?
Gee, fucking whiz. I wonder what I'm excited to talk about. Like, I specifically went to get the shirt. Like, come on. I've been wearing it the whole time. I've been defending the chat from 5-Ash this entire time. What the fuck do you think I'm excited for, Dan? Come on. Use your skills.
Okay, no, it's obvious. I get it. Well, you know what? Then let's talk about Superman, shall we?
Yes.
The first thing, in the sneak peek, we have like multiple automatons, and we'll talk about them in a little more detail. But we now know, James Gunn, I think, confirmed this, that Alan Tudyk is indeed playing the voice of robot number 4 in Superman. You see the picture of him behind the photo of Alan Tudyk there. Are you excited that Alan Tudyk continues to play voices of more and more characters in his universe? At this point, this might be, what is his third or fourth character in the DCU, and we haven't even gotten the first movie in the universe.
Hell yeah.
So,
I'm glad it wasn't like, oh, he's going to secretly be Brainiac, because I remember that was a Jeff Snyder thing.
Right.
So, like, thank God it wasn't that. I mean, could he have done it? Absolutely. And would I have liked to seen it? Sure, but I'm glad it's just like the robot number 4. I'll take it. So that's great. And I just love the scene with Superman and the robots. It's great. So we'll get to that when we talk about it, but this is great. Alan Tudyk. Give Alan Tudyk the work. I know this is like a small role, but like, give him the work, damn it. He deserves the work. He deserves all the good things.
I cannot wait to see more of these automatons. I think they will be a very fun, let's say, part of the movie. So I can't wait for that. And yeah, don't rip your shirt, John, says Caleb. But yeah, it is Superman time, Enterprising, and we are, of course, talking about it, and we'll talk about it plenty. So let's move into the main part of the DC news, which is essentially all Superman today. Sneak peek analysis, as it says down there in the graphic, and then there's a new trailer coming soon. So the first thing we want to talk about is the timing of this release, Sean. I mentioned at the beginning of the DCU Daily segment that there was a leak for this whole sneak peek, which is obvious because they put it out in theaters, so anybody who went to see Minecraft could have easily just recorded it off their phone and put it on the internet. I know that you had found the clip on Reddit, and then it got swiftly taken down. But I think news probably got around to James Gunn, and he was like, you know what? I don't think we can hold on to this for very long, even though they probably wanted to kind of have it just be behind Minecraft and only be in a movie theater for a while. And right around the time that Marvel was going to take the stage for their presentation at CinemaCon, which, I mean, I don't know, you tell me if that's a coincidence or not, but right around that time, James Gunn dropped the Superman footage online. So it kind of stole a bit of Marvel's thunder, I suppose. I know that Marvel fans, there's still plenty of them who will, only care about the Marvel stuff. But in the general conversation, I think walking away from today, Superman is clearly in the headlines, and that, it's the biggest superhero thing of the day.
Just what are your thoughts? Guy, I want to answer your question. Where did I get the shirt? I got it at shop.dc.com. I got this one. I have one that doesn't have like the lens flare on it, where it's more like just like a painted kind of thing, where it's just like regular looking.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have it. I think I might be on my floor. I don't know. Actually, it's right there. Hold on. I'll go get it. I got it. Hang on. Here it is. I got this one that like looks like the I just wore it the other day. It looks like the like 3D, kind of looks like the original Superman logo. So I got this one. Yeah, there it is. And then I have one with the poster on it. It's like a light blue, and then it has "Look Up" on the back. So I have that, and then I also
You've got all the merch, man.
I also have my mug.
Yeah, that's how you keep the budget under $300 million. Everyone is Alan Tudyk and Sean Gunn. Well, it certainly helps. By the way, I think Enterprising has some good insight that the new trailer might come out April 18 because that's when Sinners drops in theaters. So they might just, and it's also Superman Day, so they might say, "Oh, go see Sinners," which is another Warner Brothers movie. So you can then see the Superman trailer ahead of it. That is actually a really, really good point. I think we might circle back to that later when we are talking about the trailer specifically. But John, in the meantime, let's kind of keep the ball rolling here. Let's dive into the meat of it, shall we? We got a new extended look. It's the whole 9 yards, essentially. You see Superman being dragged into the Fortress of Solitude. We see the actual door to the fortress itself.
This would be a good poster. Like right
This
here.
would be a fantastic poster. Or, I mean, you look at the shot of Superman being vulnerable in a way that we haven't quite seen yet for this movie. That looked very interesting to me. The bulge is barely visible there also. But in the whole teaser, the biggest thing that I loved was they showed Crypto like, you know, a mutt. Like he wasn't a trained dog that just does what you ask him to do. Like Superman has to ask him to take him home like 6 times. Not to mention he takes a pretty healthy beating along the way from Crypto, who's just very excited to play with him for a little bit. What are your thoughts on just the overall sneak peek? I'm going to pull up the images here and we can kind of like go through the different pieces, but I want your take on this, Sean. Let's dive into that.
It's the greatest thing ever.
Dude, he's got the Superman S on the dog collar. That's exciting.
Yeah, and he's got it on the cape too.
Yes, he does.
Although you can not red, but you can get it with the logo on it, and I'm totally gonna get it. You can get a pet scarf and with the logo on it. It's only like $20. So it's like, guys, if you have a pupper, get it. I'm totally gonna get it for my dog. Get it for Zelda. Fucking do it.
I might. Hosea saying, "Love the fortress, love the door." Dude, the moment that fortress comes out of the ground, I'm like, oh wow, this is bigger and more expansive than anything that I thought. It's like finally that comic accurate Fortress of Solitude is getting the big movie treatment in the modern day Superman movie. And that's one of those things that we've been waiting for the longest time. I mean, you could say that about a lot of elements of this film, like getting the big screen treatment in earnest for the first time, because the last time they kind of did this version was back when Brendan Routh was Superman. This whole shot of the door, like he said, could be easily the poster of the movie. And you see like they're at the door. You got Crypto there with Superman in tow. It looks amazing. I love it. I love that. It's very comic accurate. Obviously it was on the thumbnail for this video. Crypto's there just waiting. All right, the door's gonna open. Then I'm gonna bring Daddy Superman inside. I can't wait for that. It looked very, very cute. And then you see Superman vulnerable. And it looks like all the automatons also have capes, so it's a very Kryptonian thing, John. Some of the guys in the chat were reacting to this, but just some geeky guy was making a point about why is Superman screaming at the sun rays. Care to speculate as to why? I mean, I have a theory myself, but go ahead. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. So the man is pretty broken up, pretty bad. And he's getting
they identify internal bleeding and like kidney damage or stuff, right?
Broken
Lungs,
ribs, 14 broken bones. So with all that, imagine like, let's say you have a cut, like a pretty deep cut, and you need to like put hydrogen peroxide on it. It's healing you, but that shit fucking hurts. So yeah, that's essentially what this is like, and imagine like, it still hurts your body to heal. So he's essentially getting a shit ton of healing from a super focused yellow sun, healing all of his injuries, doing it as quickly as they can. That shit's gonna fucking hurt. That's gonna hurt. So it's essentially healing him like a ton. And that's what it is. Like, and the relation is like putting hydrogen peroxide on a cut. It's healing you. It's like cleaning you out for antibacterial reasons. but it hurts because they gotta, it's still like the chemicals in your blood. It shit hurts, and this is gonna fucking hurt.
Dude, I will say though, this whole sequence looks like Superman is getting exercised. Like, is the Exorcist meets Superman with the way he screams at it? Like, I can just imagine James Gunn told David Cornsweet, just imagine that you're the one who's possessed, and now there's like Russell Crowe there, and he's doing an exorcism on you. So just scream as loud as you possibly can.
Well, that makes sense because he's Jor-El, right?
He's Jor-El, right? Although, I mean, again, the way they the way they show the healing process visually is clearly very different than what they did in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Because in there, like, at some point he's lying in the Indian Ocean and he just kind of reaches out for the sun as it's coming up after he's fought the alien, spaceship, that the world engine.
And also when he gets hit with the nuke in BVS.
The nuke, right. He kind of just, the way they did it in those movies was much more poetic and more like, we don't really show you all the gritty, grimy details. Here, they're like, we don't care. This is like it's in the comics.
Like body horror a little bit.
Yeah.
Like kind of like really,
which is a very James Gunn thing to do, right? Like, because he's got those roots. So, yeah. I mean, but this was honestly, a great place to leave the scene, and then they jump into and they show us a bunch of footage that we've already seen, but like with a new version of the music that we got in the original trailer. And of course the title cards have changed a little bit. They've added more color into it, in addition to the blue text. I don't know why Five Ash Art wasn't a big fan of it. I don't think it looks anything that was like that was something that was shot on a iPhone 5 Ash. This looks cinematic. It looks like it was clearly shot for the big screen, and if anything, there's a lot of center frame shots. Mm-hmm. And the way James Gunn cinematography works here is you could clearly tell there's a big difference between how James Gunn is approaching this versus how maybe a Zack Snyder approached his version of Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Right? There's two very different movie making styles, but it doesn't mean that you can't, have both things exist and be perfectly valid as both being big cinematic, franchises. So when you see this on a big screen, I mean, you could tell, look at this shot. This is not a shot that's meant to be seen on an iPhone screen. Not to mention, this is certainly not shot on an iPhone screen. So I think this movie is firmly, and this only reaffirms it in my mind, that this movie is definitely shot for IMAX, for the biggest screen, for Dolby. You're going to see it in the movie theater. You're going to love it. There's a lot of, these are a lot of wide angle shots, a lot of, you see a lot of distortion at the edge of the image. What I love about the Fortress of Solitude also is it feels like, I don't know if it's really a pocket universe or dimension of some kind, but it certainly feels closer to what we got in the Christopher Reeve version of the movies. It feels more classic. It also gives us a much better idea of the kind of Krypton that we may get flashbacks from. A much more classical version, less of that, like, Man of Steel sci-fi, which I really appreciated the Man of Steel version of the story, John. What are your thoughts on, again, just the look and feel, like the lettering, the numbering on the chest of the automatons? It's this very goth font, like very gothic font.
It's very All-Star Superman, very All-Star Superman. Like they're like straight off the fucking page, and it looks really like, as somebody mentioned in the comments of the video, very like retro futuristic kind of feel, very Silver Age and I like and I really like that. That's and Caleb was saying the suit looks really great here, and it looks like it looks color, like that's the thing. And I'm not just saying that like, oh, fucking Zack Snyder's isn't colorful. It's just most movies nowadays I feel like aren't colorful because they're like, oh, we need like a realistic kind of thing. I'm just sick of that. Like, give me the color. Give me like, I want to see a Pride Parade shit on the lens. That's how fucking colorful I want to see these goddamn movies. I don't want like muted sepia tones. Everything's brown or gray or like yellow, although that's only if it's in Mexico. But I'm just kind of sick of that. Well, okay, you know what I mean, like
Yeah, but I will say though, just as a general warning, hydrogen peroxide is usually as formulated is very strong. You probably want something to clean the cut, but there's milder versions of it, but yes, you do not want to just pour
there's-
that over an open wound. That's not going to help
not
you. It's going to
like don't.
burn
I'm
your
just
flesh.
saying, like,
Yes.
in terms of stuff like you heal yourself with, if you get like if your body like heals all at once automatically, like broken bones and bleeding,
It's kind of like the
and internal
extremis
bleeding
concept, right? In
Yeah,
Iron
it's
Man
like-
3. Yeah.
a little bit, where
There's
it's
a lot
just
of
like
heating.
everything all at once, and
Yeah.
in a couple of seconds, that's gonna fucking hurt. That's like the
It
point I
generates a
was
lot
trying
of
to make.
heat as well, and it seems like Superman obviously taking all that power from the sun. Yes, that's what. Yeah, it would hurt even for the Man of Steel. But I mean, Antonio making a great point. We've never seen it be treated this way in the movies before, right? Enterprising was saying the very Silver Age Fortress of Solitude, which I absolutely agree. I think we can both agree on that. Yeah.
Yes, it has to be diluted. Yes, you got to make sure. I understand that. I like maybe. Yes, figure drawing. Thank you for your medical advice. I'm just saying, like, that was like the first thing that came to my mind. But usually, when you pour something of antibacterial on a cut, it usually like hurts but it's like healing. It's helping you. So that's
Well,
what I was
it's sanitizing it, it's cleansing it. So
Sanitizing.
it's not really healing you necessarily, but it's
Healing, but,
making
like-
way for your body to then do the healing after it's cleared up.
And that's gonna hurt. Like that's like the point I
Yes.
was trying to make is like
Yeah.
if you're getting all that to heal like in a couple of seconds, that's like fucking bones being realigned and like your blood getting pushed back into like your organs and shit. Like that's like damn.
Yeah, it's again they show the darker side of that healing factor, which we don't usually see. It's meant to look like, oh yeah, this is so cool. It's not always cool when you're like healing like this. I think this is actually also from a physics standpoint, like you said, John, much more accurate. Like there'll be a lot of like if it's happening so quickly, it doesn't matter that you're Superman, it will still hurt like a motherfucker. So but yeah, I mean, I think one thing I wanted to kind of bring back up on screen, by the way, yes, Crypto looked as good as ever. Caleb, you're doing a fantastic job as always. We love you. We got a comment from you coming in later in the show. But then Hosea, I mean, Hosea made a point that there's a joke in this when they're first bringing him in, and the automatons are like, Superman basically says thank you, and then automatons are don't thank us. We cannot. We are robots. We will not appreciate it or something like that. That to me, I know when we heard about it, like with the CinemaCon presentation description, I was like, okay, I can kind of see how that would be funny. But having seen this now, I agree with Hosea. That particular joke doesn't quite land, at least. I don't know, maybe the tone of the movie up until that point, you might be in a different mood. But just watching this clip alone, it didn't land.
My guess is like she, since she's newer, maybe she had more like an emotional punch to her. And like the others didn't. Maybe she's different. I don't know. So that could be it. I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah.
It was a weird, but like I was just so enamored to hearing Alan Tudyk that I honestly didn't even pay attention to it. So, oh yeah, 12 is gonna 100% die because that's how it's gonna be. Because we saw Superman like leaning down and holding their hand. 12 is 100% gonna die.
Yeah, like one of them, and it looks like I think that's the one that we see dying in the trailer might be indeed 12. Do we still have that? We still have the images, right? Let's see if I can find that image somewhere where he's holding. I don't think you can see the number in that shot, can you?
I don't think so.
It's right here. Okay. Yeah, you really can't tell which automaton that is. But yeah,
and of course they probably did that on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. But yep, it seems like at some point one of the automatons is going to bite the dust, and it may be number 12. Do you think there's any significance to the particular numbers they show here? I think there was number 1.
I don't think so.
There was number 4. There was number 12, which I think was the newest one, right? Did they say that?
Yeah.
By the way, Jalen in the chat. Hello, Jalen. Antonio is here as well. Hello, Antonio. Antonio saying on the crypto thing that some folks were saying the hissy fitting about give me a break. Those folks are not going to watch this movie, or they're going to watch it. Yeah, but they do show crypto is like any other dog. He wants to play. He's not like this super. I mean, he's not meant to be this perfect intelligent dog who's like a military trained who's going to do exactly what Superman tells him to do, what Clark says. So I think that grounds crypto in reality in a way that, how do you make an animated dog that has superpowers realistic? Well, you make him behave like a real dog would, right? Like when he first comes over to Superman. Let's see if I can find some clips of that. He doesn't immediately want to. This we'll get into this a little bit later, but he doesn't immediately want to help Superman, like help take him home, like we see in the trailer. Instead, there's a little more of just he wants to just play with Superman. I mean, John, are you surprised that that's how they're treating it?
I kind of like that. I kind of like how he's like just a regular dog that just so happens to have superpowers. I don't know how they're gonna make that work. I don't know if it's actually gonna be, he's from Krypton, or he's like somehow he's a dog that he's just a dog that somehow got superpowers, whatever. But there was actually a theory by somebody in the comments, because somebody was saying that since Crypto is an important part of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, as in the comic book, some people have been saying, oh, like this is like Superman dog sitting Crypto, and then like Supergirl comes in and like uses him for that movie. So, that could be the case. That could be, an interesting touch. I don't know if they're going to do that, but it would make sense why they're bringing Crypto into here, and then Supergirl utilizes him just like the comic book. So there's that as well.
Yeah. By the way, just a sidebar, the costume looks more like it fits the rest of the environment than it ever has in any other part of this movie than it does in this sequence right here. Like that costume looks like it's completely fits the vibe, and like the architecture and everything, all the linear detail, like all the little details and paneling on the suit. It just to me works here in a way that
it looks.
Doesn't quite fit.
It looks
anywhere
good.
else.
It looks good.
Like the rest of the Kryptonian architecture feels like it's all matches together and works naturally. But this was fantastic. I mean, guys, do you think this is exactly what they needed for this marketing? A shot in the arm? This sneak peek, while it's not obviously giving away a ton of the movie, and it probably happens still pretty in the early half of the film, I bet you this is not in the second act. This is probably in the first act, the first fight scene that we get. Do you think this is going to get, the blood pumping for this movie? Like more people are like, oh my God, this was the best thing. We can't wait for this movie to come out. Like we were talking about how we needed another shot in the arm for this movie's marketing, and it looks like this is exactly that.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Also, Mark Tana. I don't know if you called them out, but hello.
Yes, Morkana was here earlier. I don't know if he dipped or he's in the chat again. So yeah, Morkana says he's so excited for the film, and we are too. Hosea saying the fortress looks
pretty
amazing.
Superman. Say that again, as Caleb says.
Hosea saying, imagine what the Batcave will look like in the DCU. The fortress looks like the ultimate man cave. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to go for something that has the scale to match. Probably something similar. I mean, maybe not the same design, but similar in scale to what we saw with Ben Affleck's Batman in the DCEU. That was a huge Batcave. So yeah, I can't wait for that. Elite Easy saying the first 45 minutes probably in reference to what? Crypto has Zod's brain. I don't know what you're talking about the first 45 minutes. Elite Easy, do you mean like the movie? Oh, okay. So what part of the movie this is from? Right. This scene is definitely, like you said, Elite Easy, from the first 45 minutes of the film. Yeah, the first act of the movie. I think that kaiju fight is probably what results in him getting all these injuries, right? That's most likely what happens. Because then later on in this tease, they show like that sequence where Lex Luthor is, sees Superman fly into Metropolis and then walks away saying he's back, or like he doesn't say it in that tone. He says like, he's back, like he's angry. I think that's probably all part of one big sequence where this kaiju, by some mechanics of like some sort of evil masterminding of Lex Luthor, the kaiju ends up in Metropolis, and Superman's fighting him, gets beat up pretty bad. Then ends up, in wherever this Fortress of Solitude is, but it's in the North Pole or the South Pole, and then he gets healed up, and then comes back and rejoins the fight, and that's when he's walking away from the window, and he's clearly like piping hot mad, and Lex Luthor's like, he's back. So I think this is all part of the opening sequence, the opening fight of the movie, where we talked about the other day. David Cornsweet himself said, or I think it was James Gunn mentioned that where the movie begins, Superman's kind of made a few superhuman friends who thinks he's a bit naive. So maybe Superman thinks he can take on the kaiju by himself, ends up getting beat up pretty badly. Then, the Guy Gardner's Lantern, Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific show up to help out. We saw the scene where he's frustrated, he's pretty beat up in that building. What was the name of the company of the building that he ends up in, and he's pretty sad looking in that trailer. So I think when you start to put the pieces together, Stag Industries, right? And the Metamorpho might be involved in some way. So it all feels like this is part of that one big sequence. It feels like almost everything we have gotten from this movie so far is part of that one big sequence that happens at the beginning of the film. And it establishes literally who all the big players are and where they are and what these characters are meant to be. Who is Lex Luthor? Why does he hate Superman? Who is Superman? The idealist man who thinks he can help save everybody, but can he really? And the other superheroes that are in the movie, how do they figure into everything? So I think this is all from the early half of the film, like Elite Easy was saying. And yes, Antonio, rest in peace to Val Kilmer. Tom Cruise actually had a tribute for him. He talked about him, and then he asked for a moment of silence at CinemaCon today. So we did talk about that earlier in the show. Caleb saying, I think this scene is the beginning of the film, and the kaiju is the flashback scene. I don't think the kaiju is a flashback scene. I think that all happens concurrently. And that leads to the injury. I mean, John, do you agree? Do you think the kaiju is the one that caused the injury to Superman?
I don't know. I don't think so, because we see him with a charred suit because it gets burned with the fire, yet he's not charred here.
Okay, that's a good point. So maybe this is earlier in the fight. Maybe it's very possible, or maybe like you said, there could be fighting something else entirely.
Exactly.
That would be interesting. We know that I think it was either Nicholas Hoult or James Gunn mentioned or hinted at the idea, or I think it was David Cornsweet. He was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but that's not the only suit that we see Lex Luthor in this movie. So they have hinted that Lex Luthor might be getting his super suit in the movie, and
Where's my super suit?
We have speculated that ball of plasma in the air that we have seen in the trailer and then that first official photo has something to do with Lex Luthor. So yeah, guys, well, Elite Easy, if it works for you, then it works for us. Caleb saying Ultraman did this to Superman.
Yeah, either that or the engineer.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I when it comes down to what they showed at CinemaCon, I think they showed a little bit more than what we got even from this sneak peek, because I remember in the description they showed more of that baseball stadium fight scene with what we're speculating to be Ultraman in that sequence, and we didn't get much of that in this sneak peek. So I feel like they're still holding a few things back. Now, speaking of, yeah, I think that's perfect, because speaking of what they might be holding back, James Gunn, who of course shared this photo, which looks straight out of an episode of Friends, I think he was responding to somebody else on, I think it might have been Threads. So he said that, hey, he is working currently on the next trailer. He said, thank you so much to somebody who said I was so excited for the movie. Though I don't consider it a trailer, it's more of a sneak peek, I guess. I'm actually just finishing up the next trailer for you all now, and oh boy, am I excited for you to see it. #Superman. So yeah, they might be holding back some of that, extra footage of the Ultraman fight in the baseball stadium, and maybe more of a look at the engineer and more of the look at Guy Gardner and everybody else. James Gunn saying this sneak peek is, well, just that, a sneak peek. It's not a new trailer. So this is not in lieu of a new trailer. This is only in addition to the next trailer, John. So speaking of which, let's kind of talk about that for a second here. Man, the coughing is coming back. But Enterprising mentioned earlier that Superman Day on April 18 might be when we get that trailer. What do you think? Do you think we'll have to wait another couple of weeks for that?
That was my theory for the longest time. I'm willing to bet that, we were going to get a trailer at CinemaCon, and then we were going to get the trailer 2 weeks later on Superman Day. Well, it seems like we got the sneak peek, and I don't think that it was like we were never supposed to get that sneak peek. I think we were always supposed to get that sneak peek. I think it was just James Gunn being like, "Oh, look, people leaked it onto the internet. Well, I guess we have to." I think they always intended maybe a little bit earlier or sooner than normal, but my guess was they were always going to do that, and then we were going to get a proper trailer with new footage on April 18th, Superman Day. That was my theory, and that is still my theory, even though it wasn't the CinemaCon thing. I think we're getting that trailer. Yeah, I think we're going to get it on that day because that just makes the most sense. And James Gunn said that he's working on it, so he said like, I'm excited, I'm finishing up, so we're probably going to get that in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Enterprising also saying 18th is his best bet. And then Caleb is speculating maybe Solaris, created by Lex Luthor, did that damage to Superman. That's another possibility, I suppose. Elite Easy is saying the newspaper in the trailer, the OG trailer that we got in December, teased a War Machine or something to that effect. I haven't read the headlines back in those trailers. I don't know if we can maybe find a still of that, but we will definitely try to look for that at some point. We didn't really get a very long glimpse at it. I don't know how significant that will be to the larger story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the next trailer, like you guys are saying, the 18th is probably when we get it. James Gunn obviously saying he's working on finishing it. So yeah, we probably don't have to wait very long, because the last time he was saying things like this, we got the trailer like a few days later. So I can't imagine. Yeah, Jalen saying like not a minute late did I see those leaks for the clips. So James Gunn is like, yeah, F it. We're just gonna put the trailer out. Yeah, I think they wanted to get ahead of it because the leaks went around the internet like wildfire. John actually recorded the leaked footage, and then James Gunn was like, you know what? It's out in theaters. People are gonna probably put this out. It's only a matter of time. Let's just give it to the people. Let's give it to them now. Let them have it. Let them enjoy it. And we really did. And this, by the way, is only around 5 minutes long. I think the footage that they got at CinemaCon was closer to 10 minutes. So I do feel like some of that extra footage they're holding back will end up in the new trailer, which we've talked about. Right. I mean, even in this sneak peek, we got some extended looks at the shots that we got in the actual movie trailer. We get a longer version of the Hawkgirl shot. We get more of the kaiju fight. We get another look at, Pa Kent there. And then, of course, we get more of the Lois and Clark interacting with each other, so that looks fantastic. This shot was not in the trailer, but it was in the teaser to the trailer, remember? So they put that back in here. Another look at that shot of him breaking through glass, and then a little bit of that, baseball stadium fight scene. The same shot of Metamorpho. So we've seen that before. This shot we've seen before. We've seen this shot before as well. What I liked here was that they put up the logo, because remember, the full trailer did not have the Superman logo in there at all. So here they're putting the logo out front, and they're doing it with the color that we got in the poster. I will say
in the back, it looks like the Star Trek The Motion Picture poster, but instead of a rainbow, it's red and blue. It reminded me of that.
And you know what I like? They're slowly ramping this up, but even here, they don't give you the name of the movie. They just give you the logo. They went from having no logo to just having the crest, and I feel like the next trailer will probably give us the name Superman written out over the logo or under it. Because, yeah, they're just, again, this is a mic drop moment from James Gunn and DC. They're like, this is Superman. Everybody knows who this is. We do not need to give you the name. We didn't even need to give you the crest until now. So, again, I think the marketing, the way they're ramping this up is fantastic. One comment I wanted to talk about before we get into the Q&A section here is, and Elite Easy, I agree with you. It is a throwback, and we both love it. The colors look very, very classic. The Enterprising saying something very significant, I think. And he mentioned that I saw some people commenting that this film feels like a classic Superman from their childhood. And or as a pet owner, I relate to Superman's plight with Crypto. I can take my kids to this one with no hesitation, as somebody told Enterprising. So yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic. That's exactly what they want from this movie. They want this to be a family movie-going experience, a 4-quadrant movie. Literally everybody and their grandparents and their grandkids can go see this thing. That's how this movie is going to make, hopefully, $1 billion. So yeah, I can't wait to see what else we get from this. I mean, if it's only 2 weeks away, that trailer will be here in no time. The time is going to fly by. But John, with that, let's dive into the Q&A session. Yes, I understood that reference. But let's get into the Q&A session here, and then we'll wrap up the show. And then we'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking more Superman then as well. But John, you have a few questions that you want to bring in. Actually, some of them might even be Superman related. So let's start with the first one.
So first things first, Caleb left a great, very long comment. But apparently he saw the movie before everybody else did. On a nice April 1st stream, he said this: breaking news. I have seen the Superman 2025 film early. I'm being super duper serious. I have to say, the film is on par with Superman Quest for Peace. David is a knockoff Henry Cavill. Nicholas Holt, Lex Luthor should have had more Jolly Ranchers. The film is overly colorful and the effects are goofy. I would kick Crypto if I could. If this is the future, how the future of DC will go, then the future is doom, not doomed. Doom. Hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Zack Snyder is love. Zack Snyder is life.
Yeah, I love the sarcasm oozing from every pore of that comment. That's hilarious. He's kind of doing his best five Ash art impression, I suppose. All right, well, let's go on to the next. That was great, Caleb. Thank you. Let's go on to the next comment, shall we?
But Enterprising left another one. He said the more rumors that come out about the Superman test screenings, all 5,000 of them, the more exhausted I feel. I want the movie to be so good that it shuts people up. This controversy brings me back to Man of Steel's production days and the arguments over everything from behind the scenes stills to costumes. Can he overcome this finally? No, because he's the top 3 most popular superheroes in the world, and that's never going to go away. So everyone is going to be particular about every single solitary thing. The Snyder cultists don't help at all.
But they're a very loud vocal minority, right? Like it's like the average moviegoer is not paying attention to what people are saying on Twitter, right? And like you said, John, when you talk about a character like Superman, like you know when the lights are brightest, you got to show up and perform. And you can see here the lights very bright, and Superman is clearly up for the task because he's literally screaming into the sun. So yeah, I think Superman will always have the pressure to perform. He's always have the pressure to succeed because he is the most well-known character, I think, probably in all of comics. He's the OG superhero. So leading the charge for an entire new cinematic universe, I think it's an understatement if we say there's a lot riding on this movie. And honestly, at the end of the day, the movie itself has to do the talking. We can't be out there like saying this is a great movie. You're not going to convince anyone to love this film. They have to watch it and judge it for themselves. And that's the challenge and the task that this movie has ahead of it. So we just hope that it will, end up delivering. I mean, Man of Steel still made enough money to be very profitable. It's just the public opinion was very divided. I think so far on this movie, that's not the case. Like if you're just going off Twitter, that's not going to give you an accurate representation of the positive, vibes that are around this film in general. I think the general audiences can't wait for this thing. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see when the movie comes out ultimately. So John, let's go on to the next comment, shall we?
All right. So next one was from Kyle Keiswetter. They were talking about, I guess you guys were talking about like toys, like McFarlane versus Mattel versus all that shit during one of the streams. But Kyle Keiswetter was saying McFarlane isn't that bad. Actually, they're quite good from all the people that I know who have bought from them. They do a lot of characters, but NECA is the best detailed figures on the market, I feel, as a collector. That's saying a lot because I know a lot of people were pissed that when DC reignited the deal with Mattel, and now they're like, oh, fuck. Because apparently Mattel has not been very good, yet McFarlane toys have been great so far and have been a great source of figures for the past like over 30 years, I think. So yeah, it's kind of a nice thing of like something we don't really talk about a lot in terms of collectors and figurines and statues and all that stuff. So but I know Hot Toys and Sideshow can be kind of good for, at least for the bigger ones, could be pretty good, but McFarlane's usually has a good track record. So, but yeah, just something a little nicer to see.
Yeah.
And then, what were you gonna say?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if you had more to say, but then we got God for Real 012. Yeah, that's not at all fucking egotistical. But they were saying, thanks for all the Superman stuff. Well, we just gave you more Superman stuff. So you're welcome. So very much thank you for watching, and you're welcome for more Superman stuff. So
we're gonna be here, man. We've been here since we've been talking about this forever. I feel like last summer you guys were tuning in. We were like, we were over analyzing the hell out of all the behind the scenes photos. I'm just happy because all of this stuff we're seeing, like especially when they're inside the Fortress of Solitude, this was all shot, on the volume screens or on sound stages. And so we never got these images because obviously most of this was probably CGI. A lot of it is shot indoors. We're finally getting to see some of this footage. It looks fantastic. But I mean, last summer we talked about so many different things. DCU Daily is basically, if not anything else, you could almost call it Superman Daily, considering how much we talk about Superman. So we appreciate the compliment. But yeah, John, was that the last one, or do we have any more comments?
We have more.
All right.
Going back to Kyle Sweater, he was saying Blackest Night needs to have all the characters developed first, so maybe after 10 to 12 years into the series. I don't think the series is going to last 10 to 12 years, but I think maybe he means 10 to 12 years into the series of films of the franchise. Definitely love to see some superheroes turn into zombies. I mean, there's a great fan-made trailer, not with AI, that was done by Ultra Sergeant. He doesn't really make movie trailers anymore, but he made one for Blackest Night, and it is so good. Like they use the Superman from when he gets nuked as like zombie Superman, and he like adjusted like the chest. It looks really cool. So I would say if that's the closest thing we'll get to a Blackest Night movie or show. But I would recommend Ultra Sergeant had great fucking trailers, so I would recommend watching those. But yeah, now going back to God for Real, they were talking about The Dark Knight and what we were saying in regards to The Dark Knight. For the record, The Dark Knight is often credited as the movie that forced the Oscars to expand the amount of movies that could be nominated for Best Picture in order to add more genre films, which is true because 2008 was the last movie, and that was like that for like fucking decades, where it was only 5 nominations. Then it got up to 10, at least 10. So for 2009, because that was when like Up and Avatar, Hurt Locker 1, that was when all those movies won. So yeah, that is correct. But then
I agree with you guys. I remember like all the controversy. I remember like they used to only have 5 nominees, right, John? So then they expanded to 10.
It was, to be fair,
yeah,
it was like with the first couple of years, it was like 3 to 5, and then during like I think the 40s, maybe 50s, it was 10. It was like that for like at least a decade.
Because what they did is the very first year they had 2 Best Picture categories and they combined them, so there was a movement to add more. Yeah, it goes in cycles. Yes, but
yeah, it was like going back and forth. But yes, but then they said, but it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Plus, of course, Ledger won Best Supporting, and then they get. We were talking about Black Panther for a little bit. But Black Panther should have, in fact, won and was a masterful film. You guys are crazy to say it's just all right. 96% rating is the highest still in the MCU and was truly a quadrant movie for young.
A 4-quadrant movie, I'm sure he meant to say.
For young, old men, women, etc. I don't think that. I think it's kind of just a mid-Marvel movie, but the reason it did so well was because there was a lot of relatability to Black audiences. They finally got like this big thing, even though Blade did it way before, but that was like, this was like, he was the one guy. This was an all-Black cast, essentially. So there was a lot of relatability there. There was a lot of, a lot of people were like, oh, this is great. Chadwick is doing a great job. So there was that. It was mainly, and with that, the thing is, the reason it got nominated was mainly a political thing. Like, oh, it's like, oh, we have an all-Black cast. Well, this is a big moment for superheroes, so we have to nominate.
Okay.
That's how I felt, at least.
I will disagree with you on all of those points, and here's why. Because I go back and watch that movie today. Here's the thing. One of my biggest criteria for how I judge a movie is what I call this watchability. Meaning, like, can I watch this thing 5 to 10 times over, get something new out of the experience every time, enjoy it, not feel like I'm laboring my way through it? And I think on that level, Black Panther is probably one of the best Marvel movies made ever. I will say this: the third act CGI is very wonky, and that's that when they're fighting around that train platform. But as far as the story, the messaging, the social cultural relevance, I think it goes beyond just being a great movie for Black audiences. I think the movie in general, you look at the character's journey, the way the way they explore how essentially T'Challa has to pay for his father's sins in a way, and then he chooses to go a different path than his father did, and in doing so ends up almost dying, but in the end he ends up overcoming. Obviously, he, like he says, he's the monster that we created, and now I have to go, like, what was his name, Killmonger, right? So thematically, this movie is more well put together than most Marvel movies are. It has more to say than most Marvel movies ever have. The soundtrack for this movie is probably, to this day, outside of the Avengers, the best soundtrack any Marvel movie has had.
Best soundtrack, I think.
Yeah, dude, it put Ludwig Göransson rightfully in the conversation for being one of the best music composers in Hollywood today and the future. Like, he's probably now like the heir in waiting for Hans Zimmer and John Williams, like the next big prodigy. Prodigal son for music composition for the movies, and then when you look at the scale, the scope, the production design, the costume design, the action wasn't the best that any Marvel movie has put up, but it was more than passable. I thought this movie was fantastic, and Baku, the first time we see him, where they're like they're just like literally bullying their way through all the other tribes, and then like there's the moments where Duke Winston just inserts this elements of comic relief. I felt were perfect. I thought the way, again, Chadwick Boseman, everybody has said it, I'll say it again, the way he carried himself, the way he played the role of T'Challa, like, you need to be regal, you need to be humble, you need to be still imperfect, you're not a perfect character. Yeah, and then when am I forgetting her name? Angela Bassett, I mean, great. I, for one, have never quite bought into the Letitia Wright character, I think, being now the Black Panther of the MCU, but in that movie, she had a great role. Dude, they had Daniel Kaluuya in this. I can't, the biggest thing that we were missing in the second movie, outside of course, Chadwick Boseman, was Daniel Kaluuya's character was not in it. But, like, dude, Michael B. Jordan played probably one of the best, at least even until that time, because it was before Thanos. He was probably, I think, walking out of that movie, the best villain that an MCU movie had to date. So in my opinion, where I put Black Panther is in the MCU, Black Panther is probably a top 3 movie, and overall, or at least a top 5. And I think the same goes for when you're talking overall Marvel. I still think Logan is the best Marvel movie ever made, but I will firmly put Black Panther in the conversation for one of the best. I think the story beats, the way it's paced, the way it's structured, again, the way the characters tie into each other. I think it's not just relevant to certain cultures. I think the messaging is universal. And then the hopeful message that it ends on is, quite frankly, one of the best endings for an MCU movie that I think we need more of that in the world right now, not less of it. And dude, every time you see Andy Serkis on screen, he just chews up the scenery, and he was amazing.
They killed him off. Like,
that part I hated.
Then he was in this, and then that was it. He was such.
I was very disappointed, but honestly, I'm like, what else would you get out of him other than maybe a Disney Plus TV show? So when you really think about it, like, what else did he have to offer at that point? So I mean, I've grown to be less disappointed in the loss of Andy Serkis' character. Maybe I'm sure at some point they're gonna have a Disney Plus show that goes to the backstory of what Wakanda used to be back in the day. But this movie was just fun. I mean, it was fun. It was original in a way that most Marvel movies are not, with a memorable villain and a hero that people can actually look up to. I mean, I love this movie. I mean, I've been talking about it for 15 minutes now, but yeah. I mean, Caleb, I don't know, you don't agree with me, but I will tell you to this day, and I think a lot of people will say the same. It's a top 5 MCU movie.
I agree with Caleb. I don't think it's that. I mean, like, you can't really call a movie masterful when the CGI, like a big part of that movie, looks that bad. When Aquaman,
well, it wasn't bad in everything. There were only, I think it was only some parts of the third act, John. Come on, it was.
But like when you had like Aquaman had like half the budget, and entire movie took place underwater. Like most of that movie took place underwater, and it looked a million times better. So it's like, I don't know about that, but like I don't want this to be like a DC versus Marvel. But I just don't think I felt the structure was really poor. I felt that like 2/3 of this movie felt like the first act, and then like acts 2 and 3 were in like the last like 30 minutes of the movie, and it felt like so incredibly slow and then so incredibly rushed. I will say this: the score is great score. And I do think Michael B. Jordan gave a great performance, but I felt the action sequences were okay. I feel like the story was not.
Dude, this shot in the trailer was one of those when he like flips the car and jumps onto the next one. I was like, whoa!
The story was not
one.
very good. The acting was pretty good. I'm not gonna act like it's a bad movie. It's not bad. It's just it's pretty like I give it like a 6.5. Like it's okay, but it's not like I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. I know the comments are probably all gonna call me racist now. But I mean Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan were both excellent, and I think Winston Duke was also great. And it did have some memorable, like the whole South Korea fight scene, I think was probably the best part of the movie for me.
It was one of the best for me, yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think it hit as much. Like it just the poor structure really killed, and some of it had that like typical Marvel humor that I just don't really like very much. I mean, Winston Duke was great, but like everything else was just kind of and it just overall I don't think it hit as well for me as it did for a lot of other people. And I definitely do not think this should have been nominated for Best Picture. It's not even close to Best Picture quality for me, but I feel like that is for most Best Picture nominees in this day and age. I don't think Wicked was Best Picture nominee worthy either.
I just like when they embrace the genre pictures a bit more, right? Like I will get that representation, whether we get it from Marvel or DC.
Yeah.
It's breaking barriers down, but
but I will say Blade was the OG black superhero. I'm just saying he was the OG. We gotta
just
respect
because
Marvel
you were the
Daddy.
OG, right? No, it's absolutely, and we do. I mean, but yeah, like I said, I personally really enjoyed Black Panther. I think it has more layers to the storytelling than most Marvel movies do, and it does, and it handles its story in a way that feels more nuanced than most Marvel movies do.
What's my top 5? I'm gonna actually look that up real quick. I agree with Caleb. My favorite's Guardians 2. Guardians Volume 2 is my favorite easily.
By the way, I'm just gonna say in general though, that comment they were talking about The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight should have been nominated for Best Picture, and in my opinion, should have won Best Picture. That is a masterclass in pacing. It's the best superhero movie made of all time ever made, and quite frankly, it's greater than just being a superhero movie. You could just call that a crime thriller. Take take the although the Batman being a mass vigilante is a big part of the movie. I think that movie its core structure works just as well if it was not a Batman movie, because it does a lot of what again Black Panther does too. Commentary on society, how people are, how they behave when they're tested in moments of crises. These two movies have that in common, both DC and Marvel. But John, you were saying, go ahead.
My top 5 are Incredible Hulk is number 5, then number 4 is Iron Man, number 3 is Avengers Age of Ultron, number 2 is Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then number 1 is Guardians. Those are like Kino for me personally. And then I would say honorable mention to Captain America the First Avenger, Guardians the first one, Iron Man 3, the first Doctor Strange, No Way Home, Thor. I think all of those are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I think your list is pretty impressive. Mine obviously, I mean, for everybody, their list will differ. So mine obviously does differ from yours as well. I'll start with like probably the number 1 and work my way down from there. And then, I think after that, we'll probably wrap up the show. But yeah, my number 1 movie in the MCU, and this is specifically to the MCU, not overall Marvel. Then you have to add in like X-Men movies. But my favorite top 5 MCU movies would be number 1 for me is Iron Man, the original Iron Man. Number 2 for me is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Number 3 is Black Panther. Number 4 is The Avengers, the first Avengers movie. And then number 5, I would say, is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. sometimes I try to sneak Avengers Infinity War into the top 5. It's really good, but I think just as core movies introducing characters and taking them on a journey and an arc, the messaging and everything, and just the fight sequences and all, that's my top 5. On the DC side of things, I would The Dark Knight is at the top of the pile every day of the week, and the Marvel side, the top of the pile is Logan every day of the week. I think those are two pretty clear.
I will say
on those categories
in terms of like. Fox, I don't agree with Days of Future Past being better than Logan, but like Days of Future Past, that's easily like top 3. Like I would say Logan's probably the best, then X2, then Days of Future Past, then probably The Wolverine, and then maybe First Class would probably be my top 5, around there. And then the first X-Men's really good. X-Men The Last Stand's not great, but it's not horrible either. I expected a bad movie, and I thought that was, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I will say X-Men Origins Wolverine, dog shit. That is terrible. But
is it so bad it's good, though?
I don't know about that. But yeah, and then, Apocalypse was okay, but it was not great. And then I never watched Dark Phoenix or New Mutants. I have to because I do like.
I haven't seen New Mutants. I have seen Dark Phoenix. I'll just say again, I'm not gonna give you guys the whole list right now, but I will say Logan is by far the best Marvel movie overall, and certainly the best Fox Marvel movie as well. I would probably put the first Deadpool in there somewhere as maybe in the top 3, maybe 3.
Deadpool.
Yeah.
I like Deadpool.
Yeah, and then
somewhere top 10.
The X2 I think might be my second. But anyway, I wanted to end, since we are DCU Daily, I wanted to kind of finish the show off with this photo. The cast and James Gunn posing almost like they're straight out of the marketing poster for Friends. I totally am blanking on the lyrics of that intro, but hey.
No one told you life was gonna be this way. I never watched Friends, so.
Dude, come on. Okay, you gotta. Okay, on that note, John.
Past my time, bro. I was like fucking.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't freaking matter. You were alive. Okay, come on. But you gotta catch up anyway. And on that note, guys, we're gonna wrap up what has been another incredible episode of DCU Daily, as well as, of course, we talked about the news, the last day of CinemaCon studio presentations. Tomorrow we are back to wrap up the whole week, and we'll be here. We might have an earlier show, either that or John might be doing it by himself because I won't be around tomorrow evening. But nonetheless, we will definitely keep you guys up to date and posted. So check in on the community post section of the channel for that news.
Or
but
turn
until
the
then,
notifications on.
Yes, hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll know when we are going live. And while you're at it, hit the like button. We do appreciate that. And if you have any other comments, questions that you'd like for us to answer in the next Q&A session, drop those down below in the comments section. So, John, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be talking about all of the Superman footage again, because there's going to be more Easter eggs, more things you might have missed, theories. So we'll be back talking about those tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that. But until next time, guys, maybe go to dcshop.com, shop some of the new
get
Superman
all your
merch.
stuff.
We'll see you on the next episode of DCU Daily.
Superman bulge.